Hello, everybody. Pop culture curator here. It's Wednesday evening, or at least where I'm at, which means we are finally back after I don't know how long. I think a month or more. Monthly hiatus because I had so many things going on, but we're finally back to continue our Gilligan's Island reviews, and we're going to pick up right where we left off. We are on season 2, and we're going to be covering episodes 11 and 12. The first one we're going to cover is the chain of command. But before we get into that, I know there's some of you that have been waiting in the chat, and I really appreciate it. So let me say hello to everyone. Mikey says the mosquitoes were a parody of the Beatles and monkeys. LOL. Yeah. Yeah, I'll cover a little more of that when we get there. Gorilla says might be a little late. Thank you, Gorilla. Yeah, sorry guys, I had to take my dogs out and feed them. Hey, no worries, brother Gorilla, says Mikey. And Mikey says castaway versus honest savages and mosquitoes. LOL. Oops, I don't want to show that. No worries, Pop. Good to see you, says Mikey. Hello, Lemon Pie. Good to see you. Lemon Pie says
hey,
hello.
Scurvy, and hey, Mikey.
Mikey says hello, Lemon Buddy. Lemon Pie says howdy, Sue's 4 plus wife plus felines. And most of all, hello, Gorilla. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. There.
What kind of weather are you guys having?
It's a little warm, and our air conditioner broke at work.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll get it fixed soon.
No, they got a guy coming in, but the pipe's frozen over.
That sounds like, you mean like condensation or because it's freezing outside?
No, the intake pipe there, it freezes. It's probably low on it's probably low on freon, plus a combination of there's probably a clog in the conductor coils.
It sounds like maybe a leak.
Yeah, I could probably fix it for them, but it's not my problem.
No, it's not. Let them do it. That way they get a warranty. Whoever fixes it'll be responsible. And that way they can't blame you. Lemon Pie says, hey, Pop. Hey, Gorilla. Yeah, good to see you, Lemon Pie. I'm glad you could join us. I'm sorry I'm a little late tonight, guys. I'll try not to waste too much time. I usually read from my Gilligan's Island book, Inside Gilligan's Island by Sherwood Schwartz. But I've been on the phone with doctors all day. I didn't get a chance to prepare for that. But I promise I will get caught up on that next week.
All right.
Let me get the video player started here.
And
of course,
Mikey said 70 degrees and partly cloudy in Toronto.
Not bad. Yeah, I had my computer on and I turned everything on, had it ready to go for this stream. Took my dogs out. They went potty. I came back in and fed them. Get on the computer, and then it decided. I don't want to swear too much, but the damn computer decided to reboot and try to force me to install Windows 11 again. And I'm so tired of it doing that right in the middle of me using it. It's like, oh my God. Oh, I hate Microsoft. I hate Bill Gates. I miss having an Apple computer.
Yeah. And hey, Euler Greg, how's it going? He says hello, everyone. And
Hello,
Scurvy
good to see
says,
you.
100 and bright and sunny here today, but not probably in the cool 95. And then Mikey says, "Hey, Oiler Greg, welcome." All right, I'll be
Very
right,
cool.
all right. I'll be back here in a minute.
No problem there. I'll read a little bit of the description here and when the episode aired. So we're going to start off, like I said, this is season 2, episode 11, The Chain of Command. And it aired originally December 2nd, 1965. And the description reads, the skipper trained Gilligan to be his replacement leader in case he is captured by savages. But when the skipper is actually captured by savages, can Gilligan actually take control? All right, so let me get the player up and running, and I'll get the episode queued and make sure that we have subtitles. All right, let me get this just the right size, make sure there's no volume. Okay, got the volume taken care of. There we go. All right, and now share my screen. I shouldn't be talking to myself where you guys can hear all this boring stuff. There we go. All right. So we start with our standard opening here. I wish I could play the theme, but of course we can't, or I will get copyright stricken. So we have our hero Gilligan and Skipper heading out to their 3-hour tour, and of course the weather starts getting rough. Oh, it feels so good to get back to covering Gilligan's Island again. Okay, so we open up with a shot of the lagoon, which is apparently you could tell they filmed this in late afternoon by the lighting. You could tell it's a little darker, and because the long shadow that's cast by the professor. So I'm guessing it was probably filmed in the afternoon, 5 or 6 p.m. And Skipper's talking about how we have to get these holes stocked, Professor, and they're worried about headhunters around this island. And I wanted to mention too, this right here, this scene, you could tell that it has natural sunlight, and it was filmed in the lagoon or at the lagoon on the exterior location outside the soundstage. But when they cut and they show Gilligan, that is actually inside the soundstage. So those two are actually not looking at each other because this is filmed at a different time. You could tell because this is studio lights and it's an interior. I know it probably doesn't make much of a deal, but now we cut back outside the lighting, which it looks like it's a little brighter. And now the professor explains that the Papuan headdress worn only when those savages are on their warpath. So they're concerned about headhunters and they're trying to build some sort of shelter. In fact, you could tell right here, because Gilligan's standing by those rocks, and it shows Skipper walking towards him. And like I said, you could tell this is filmed outside with natural sunlight. But as soon as Skipper approaches Gilligan, boom, you can tell that's interior. The lighting has changed, the angle has changed, and you can tell it's studio lights. I don't know why they decided to do it that way, but they did.
Keep it focused on the actors there.
Probably so. And I guess they don't expect us to tell the difference.
Well, maybe back then. Could you tell it on the TVs back then?
I was a kid, so I didn't know better. Adults may have if they had a larger television, but back then, well, I'm watching this on my laptop, so it's not like it took a big TV.
Yeah, but the resolution's a lot clearer than it was back in the 60s.
It is. If I remember right, back in the 60s, the largest TVs out were maybe 25-inch or smaller, maybe 19.
Yeah.
So Gilligan's trying to chop down this tree, and unfortunately, he's losing control over it, and it's about ready to tip over. and he's trying to call for the skipper, and the skipper says, "Don't bother me."
See, see, I had a little bit of a different joke in this one. First time he yelled "Skipper," and he said, "Don't bother me. I'll fight for," kind of like in golf, to watch out.
Uh,
And
you mean
Skipper just,
you mean
"Oh, what are you
timber?
blabbering about?" Or
See,
yeah, or timber, yeah, timber. And Skipper be like, "What the hell are you blabbing on about?" Then it falls on him. Instead of two skippers, we'll change up
right,
the wording a little bit to make it'd be a little bit funnier.
right. So
Still a good joke.
Skipper's busy examining this hat, which you could tell it's probably not from natives because you can clearly see gold aluminum foil, and I can't see natives on an island having access to something like that.
Oh
So he
yeah.
says, Gilligan, we've a lot of work to do, and the tree falls and Gilligan hides, and of course it hits Skipper. And now we cut to inside the hut, and of course Skipper's upset because the tree fell on him.
Yelling at him. Hey, if someone's gonna fall on me, I give you permission to bother me.
Exactly. Now he tells him, right? Um, this is a reminder, everybody, we can't play the audio because I don't want to get a copyright warning, and I can't play the video, so I have to skip through every few seconds, so it's going to miss jokes. So I highly recommend that you watch this on your own, so that way you're able to enjoy every single joke because it's loaded with them. And doing the slideshow doesn't give it justice that it deserves. So now is where Skipper starts thinking about whatever happened. Excuse me. He starts to think about if something happens to him, who's going to take over and be the leader. So he's walking around frustrated. Gilligan's trying to get his attention, but of course he's thinking beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah, he kept describing everything that Gilligan was. Like Gilligan's not the greatest at, but it's everything that Gilligan is, and then he doesn't even think of Gilligan.
No, he
It's
doesn't.
kind of funny.
And of course, Gilligan's trying to impress him. When Skipper said he needs somebody strong, and of course, Gilligan is not able to lift that chest. And he says he needs somebody who's real Navy. And then Gilligan starts acting like that he's Navy. And he says real vision. And Gilligan says, "Hey, Skipper, you see that mosquito? I can tell by the mark under his wing. Oops, it's under her wing," he says. And I missed the joke where he said that as a mosquito, I think he said that bit him last night.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And Skipper says he's got to look like a skipper. So, of course, Gilligan sticks out his stomach. And, of course, Skipper's just bothered and says, "Oh, Gilligan, for goodness sakes."
Why would anybody want to be the leader if it's unpaid? Like, I wouldn't want the position unless you're paying me damn good money.
Well, obviously, he's not getting paid for this, though.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure, if you're competent and you're smart, and if you're competent, I would say, in my opinion, if you're competent, smart, and brave, and you're willing to defend others, and if you say, "No, I don't want to be captain or skipper, or I don't want to be in charge," what if somebody who's incompetent, who's not brave, who's a coward, and who's not, any of those things, what if they become leader or in charge because you didn't volunteer? Then you're going to have to take orders from them.
Yeah. All right, should we catch up on the chat real quick?
That's a good idea. Thank you. If you could help me, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Let's see. Lemon says, "Hey, Euler." Euler Greg says, "Hey, Mikey and Scurvy." Scurvy says, "Mikey, did you say Scurvy, buddy? Because it's a Gilligan's Island." And Mikey said, "Yes, LOL." And Mikey says, "I can sing the theme." Well, a lot of people can sing the theme. I can sing it from memory, though.
Yeah,
Mikey
we just
just
want a copyright strike. Otherwise, we'd be singing it every week.
yeah. If I do a bad enough rendition, I could sing it. They wouldn't care. They won't want to draw attention to my bad singing. And
Yeah,
Mike,
maybe or change up the words or something, right?
you just gotta do it in the tone. And mostly, what the songs there would probably do is look for the background instrument musical, not the actual words. Scurvy says, "Mike, you just don't want me with the hat like Skipper." And the Heroes Oiler Greg's channel, he does spoiler free reviews. Mikey says, "Nah, Scurvy, you're good." Yes, yes, Gilligan's Island.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Ah. Don't worry, I won't do as loud into the mic as what's his face that's on the does it from All That Remains, lead singer. I can't remember his name right now.
Yeah, and I don't know who that is.
Yeah, he shows up on a couple podcasts every once in a while. And Mikey says, "Hey, Popper."
Hello there.
Yeah, all right, we're all caught up.
Okay, so Skipper's trying to figure out who can take over, who'd be the leader, and of course, Gilligan is disappointed and sad because he wasn't chosen. And Skipper gets excited and calls for Gilligan. Gilligan thinks that he's calling for him to elect him, and he says, "Yes, sir, Captain." And he says, "Where's the professor?" Which is a good idea. If anybody's to be in charge, I guess it would be the professor. I guess that's who I would choose. And it looks like the professor's working on designs for some kind of fortress to protect them from the headhunters.
Yeah, and it keeps going to these designs that take like 15 years to build.
I know. He's mentioning all these different designs out of history, which they'll show here. The Emperor Hadrian commanded Platorius Nepos to undertake the building of a structure. Really? That's true. As would William the Conquerors, but the savage mind today, which is similar to the Apache Marauder of 300 years ago, is the clue to our defense. Now look, and of course, Kimber doesn't understand any of that. And I've got to be careful. I can't read all the text, or we'll get a copyright warning. We've learned that in the past. But even if we're only showing the slides, if I read the text too much in detail, I'll get a copyright warning. And I don't want that to happen.
Oh, fucking, what was it, CBS? Hey, it's CBS, right?
Yes.
Fucking CBS.
And accessible only by ladies and notched poles. So the skippers is driving this fortress, which can be pulled up in case of an attack. And Skipper says, "But Professor, do you know how long it take to build that?" And now they're talking about, yes, but the headhunters are fast too. And then after extensive consideration, and Skipper, oh, my ribs are so sore. I'm sorry. When I lean forward to talk, it's hard to breathe. But when I lean back, I can breathe just fine. But I'm further away from the mic, and I don't want to cause sound issues. And at any moment, to shoot arrows at us, sharp arrows, of course. And like I said, it's missing jokes because of the slides. So I recommend you watch this on your
Yeah.
own.
No, well, the basis of the joke was, well, it all depends on what kind of arrow. If it's a flaming arrow, then we'd be in very big trouble if we use wood, you know. And it's like, it doesn't really matter what arrows they would use.
Roy and Skipper says not to mention heartburn.
Yeah.
So Skipper is apparently disappointed that he doesn't think the professor is going to be right for the job because the professor wasn't listening. And now he passes it Skipper Gilligan. It looks like Gilligan built a bow and arrow. And of course, Gilligan points it at him and he says, "Ever tell you not to point?" He says, "I thought they meant just for fingers." And he's encouraging Skipper to try out the bow and arrow. And Skipper's impressed. He says, "That's quite an idea that you've got. It'll probably save a lot of lives." And Skipper pulls back the bow, and unfortunately, as you can see, it breaks. And he says, "Save a lot of lives." Now, here, he said, "Headhunters' lives," is what he said. He says, "Now here, take this, make it, use it for kindling." And now Skipper says, "I've got to find somebody." He's still looking for someone to take over for him. So he's going to the Howl hut. And as expected, the Howls, thinking that they're going to be captured, are trying to decide what kind of wardrobe to wear. And of course, Mrs. Howell wants to be fashionable, so she mentions that if they're going to wear grass skirts, that beige goes with grass. Beige would not clash with grass skirts. I do think chiffon's terribly chic for a capture. No, my dear, he says, I'm not too sure about chiffon.
I
Oh,
wish I. Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I wish I had that many damn clothes that I'd have to sit there and struggle to figure out what to wear to what event.
Yeah, same here. When people ask me, hey, let's go out and have a few drinks or go out to dinner or whatever, I'm thinking, I don't have any nice clothes for something like that. I don't want to go wearing a t-shirt and Levi's or a t-shirt and shorts.
I
So
would.
I know, but sometimes it depends on where. Well, it depends on where you're at. If we're going to McDonald's or Burger King, sure.
I wore my Star Wars shirt and a pair of khakis to that fancy restaurant my parents took us to. Of course, there's a guy 2 tables down who's in a white beater.
As long as people aren't staring you at. Hold on a second, my dog. I got to put her down. There we go. That's better. I just fed them, so my dog Ginger wanted up a bit, so she can go take her turn because they take turns eating. Okay.
Yeah. I can't believe, though, that casino went smoke free. Have you ever heard of such atrocity?
Well, the casinos in okay. First of all, I don't go to the casinos. I don't gamble, and I don't smoke. But several years ago, I'm guessing about 2011, 2012, an opening came up at a casino. This is in California, and it was at the Chuck Chansey Casino, which is that's actually my Native American tribe that I come from. But an opening came up for a computer IT, something like that. It was we're working on computers. It was like an IT specialist or something. Now, this casino had already banned smoking for like a year or two. I drove up there. It was about a 45-minute drive. I get to the casino. I walk in, and the thick smell of smoke. See, even though they ban smoking, you're still going to smell it because it penetrates and it's all over everything. So I went in there, and the guy was there waiting for me. He says, "Hello, how you doing?" I said, "No, thank you, sir. I'm not interested." And he says, "What's the matter?" And he says, I told him, I said, "I can't work in a place that smells like an ashtray all day long." So I turned around and walked out. So I didn't even apply for the job. But yeah, even casinos, because you got to remember, people really smoke heavy. Even if they ban smoking, they don't go and clean up around them. They don't like repaint the walls or put in new carpet or any of that stuff. So it's still going to smell like cigarettes for a long time.
Oh, Treasure Island there was pretty cleaned up, but they got mad at me because my sister handed me $5 and told me go have some fun there. So I went I pretty much turned $5 into $50 there.
Well, they
And I
shouldn't get mad at it. Getting mad at you. Are you talking
oh
about
no
Las Vegas?
no the people at the Indian casino see here the state government has no control over what happens on the Indian reservations
Right.
there. But as I was leaving the casino, I think I was like, "You guys, you guys saved me a lot of money. I'm actually up $50 because you guys told me I couldn't smoke at the machine, so you guys saved me a lot of money by making me go outside." So instead of sitting there pressing the button all night there and just lighting one up,
Yeah. See,
I had to walk away from a machine, go outside for 15 some minutes at a time. Saves you a lot of
that's
money.
true. Yeah, that's true.
Because sometimes you don't realize how much you're spending until it's like, oh shit, I lost that much?
I know, especially if you're drinking. That's why I don't know how it is where you're at, but they give free drinks where I was living, and also in Vegas they give you free drinks because they know the more you drink, the more you spend.
Yeah, well, they don't offer free alcohol unless you're really up and they're trying to get you away from the machine or up
Away
away from
from
the
the machine?
or away from the poker tables and stuff, and the blackjack tables. That's the only time they'll really offer you free stuff.
Why would they want to get you away from the table? It seems like they want
If
you
you,
to go towards it.
well, if you're like if someone's really good at blackjack and counting cards, and they're
Oh,
winning a
oh,
lot of money.
yeah, I've seen that. What I've seen them do is like when I went to Vegas, I tried blackjack, but when you had somebody that was, let's just say they were winning, I don't know if they were counting cards or they had good luck or whatever, but whenever they were winning, they would swap out the dealers. So that's what I noticed them doing. But that's another reason why too I didn't go to casinos because somebody would sit right next to me smoking, and I couldn't breathe. So yeah,
Well, the
casinos aren't my bag.
oh, you would like Treasure Island there that you can access the non-smoking section. They have a sealed off non-smoking section
A little
there
tiny
you can
glass
access
booth.
from outside. No, no, it's an actual room. It's a good sized room that has like 40 some machines in it. But it was
Well
the
then,
original non-smoking section of the casino. But now the entire casino is smoke free, and I'm guessing their car. And it didn't really smell too bad like smoke, but also I'm also a smoker, so yeah. But anyhow, back on topic.
all right. So here the houses are still talking about clothing, and Skipper knocks on the door, and they say, "Oh, the captain, yes, yes, come in, come in." And may I say, this is the time for action, says Skipper. No, says Mr. Howell, and the Skipper says, "Oh, I like your kind of man. May I repeat, this is the time for action." And then now they're telling him that that they hope that that's not what he's planning on wearing to a capture. Of course, they make it sound like a social event.
Yeah.
And of course, Skipper's confused. And it may seem incredible to you, Captain, but now wait a minute, you two. And of course, they go on and on about their wardrobe and what they're going to wear if they're captured, so they're not even listening to him. And he's saying to them, what we're wearing couldn't be less important. Dressing is always terribly important, says Mr. Howell. Now, if it's a signing for a formal treaty, we dress we dress formal. This is the joke that we're missing because of the
Yeah. Yeah, we just if we're
fight.
dressing for a capture, we're just somber but sincere.
Right.
You know, then they like if they drown, then you need water resistant clothes or something like that.
Yes. I'm trying to adjust here. Don't have to lean forward so much. Give me just a second.
Okay. Well, while you're doing that, Mikey says flaming arrows on palm trees. Oh yeah, Professor, that's obvious. Mikey says black, such a mundane color for a funeral. For a capture, go with a red dress or a red T-shirt. LOL. And Scurvy says they made non-smoking section at a casino I went to, but you walk through the smoking first. No, not this casino. They got an outside access, but the whole casino smoke free now. And Mikey says you can't avoid smoking sections anywhere in Vegas. And Scurvy says they give you little ice shots of scotch. I downed it. Said I have another, and they make you wait 5 or 10 minutes, I guess, so you don't burn up their booze before you lose your money. LOL. And
Right.
Mikey says,
Unless
"Oh,
you're really dumping in a lot of money, then they'll give you all the booze you want, right? Okay, let's see here. So now talking about his cerise smoking jacket. Is it too obvious? And Skipper says, "Will you stop talking about clothes for a minute?"
yeah." And Mikey said, "Oh, yeah, that tends to happen, Scurvy."
Yes. So Skipper says we need to come up with a plan for action. And Mr. House says, "Oh, I've been working on that for hours." And he talks about ransom money for the natives. So they have stacks of cash there, of course. And of course, Skipper says, "I mean, those savages are headhunters. No spear can go." And he says that they don't care about money. And then Mr. Howell holds up a stack of cash and says, "No spear can go through this." And that's when the skipper realizes that they're mentally on a completely different level. And he doesn't think Mr. Howell is going to be leadership material. So he decides to leave. And of course, once again, Skipper gets his attention. "Hey, Skipper, look at this new weapon." And he said he built a slingshot. And he points it. And he says, "Don't. What did I tell you about pointing?" And he says, "Well, not that way, this way." And of course, he points it towards the Howell hut. And the skipper stops him. And he wants to show the skipper how it works. He says, "Oh, ready, aim, fire." But unfortunately, he turns and he hits the skipper in the gut. And Skipper says, "Will you give me that thing?" And he takes it away from him. And he says, "Now, where are the girls?" So Skipper is considering everybody on the island except for Gilligan at this point. And Gilligan says, "I think they're in their hut." Well, thinks about Gilligan now here. And he pretty much ties up the rubber band on the slingshot and then hands it back to Gilligan. But it gets caught on his arm.
Huh.
There it is. That's where he ties it up.
Yeah, that's a good slingshot there if it can pull apart that good.
Yeah, exactly. And here are the girls in their hut. And Skipper calls out and they say, "Come in." And Skipper says, "How is it going?" And they say, "How's what going, Skipper?" And he says, "The bandages, where are they?" So the girls are supposed to be making bandages. And they say, "Well, you see," and then Ginger starts telling him a story about a movie star who was stuck in a hick town. So so basically, she goes on to say they were rolling the bandages, but they decided to put them in her hair instead.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing. So the girls start arguing about whose idea it was to use the bandages to put in her hair. So of course, Skipper once again gets frustrated and walks out. And now is where Skipper sees Gilligan, and now he starts to realize now that he's down to the last person. He calls Gilligan over and says, "Gilligan, little buddy, I want to talk with you." So he tells Gilligan to have a seat. And he says, "I've been thinking, as a matter of fact, I made a decision of great importance." And Gilligan says, "About what?" He says, "If anything to happen to me, there's only one logical replacement, and that's you." And of course, that's what Gilligan's been hoping. And he's all excited. And he says, "Me, me." Well, Gilligan, it's not exactly. And Gilligan says that it's the first promotion he's gotten since first grade. And then Skipper says, "Well, Gilligan, it's not exactly a promotion. It's just in case something happens to me." "Well, it's better than being put back," says Skipper. Or he says to Skipper. He talks about Skinny Mulligan. That's the joke that we're missing between the slides. But Skipper doesn't want to hear about Skinny Mulligan.
Yeah.
No, now, little buddy, this is going to take a lot of hard work, he says. In order for you to assume the command, and he says, "We need somebody in great shape." And he says, "Oh, Skipper, I'm in great shape. I can do 6 push-ups and 3 sit-ups all in one day," which, of course, is not very much.
Yeah.
And Skipper says, "No, thanks very much, Gilligan."
Yeah. Hey, welcome, Canadian Spider-Man.
"Hello, Canadian Spider-Man. Good to see you there."
I'll catch up on chat here in a minute.
"Okay, sounds good." Now, Skipper tells him, "Now pay attention. 10 hut, suck in your gut." And of course, Gilligan doesn't have much of a gut to suck in. And he says, "Roll out your chest." And Gilligan doesn't have a chest to roll out. So he says, "I am." And now Skipper's telling him, "Will you look straight out, sneer a little, scowl a bit, bring your shoulders up, make a big fist with your right hand, hit it with your left," and he does. And of course, Gilligan, it hurts his hand. Now bend your knees a bit. Get ready to bark out the commands. Battle stations. All right, Gilligan, bark. And of course, Big Gilligan barks like a dog. And he says, "All right, Gilligan, that's not funny. It's got to come from there." So he points at his diaphragm. "That's it, Gilligan. Battle stations." And in a wimpy voice, Gilligan says, "Battle stations. How's that?" "Peachy, Gilligan, but why don't you say it so someone will pay attention to you?" "Oh," says Gilligan.
Yeah. Yeah, no one would pay attention to Gilligan there.
No, right. That's exactly what Skipper's telling him. He's got a loud. He's got to have a loud, boisterous voice. Gilligan, just forget anything that I've said. "Oh, Skipper, I do better. You know, Gilligan, I've got good news for you. You're not ready for people yet," he tells him. So now we have Gilligan practicing marching. And here we have another guest appearance by Janos Prohaska as the gorilla in his own custom built suit. Up, two, three, four. And Janos, instead of following him, climbs up the tree. And Gilligan sees that as an inspiration and says, "My troops will go anywhere for me." "I think," he says. He hits himself. He uses his fist to hit his hand again, and of course it hurts him. And here's
Yeah.
where Skipper calls him over and says, "Gilligan, I feel that we have quite an arsenal. Here's our catapult," which by looking at it doesn't look very effective. They could have built a better catapult.
Well, it's effective if they're all lined up in a row, but I
I,
don't see them being
yeah, it's
able to
right, lined up in
design.
a row, and yeah, standing right next to it also.
Yeah. Well, I don't. Well, I can think you could flob those coconuts a long ways, but the problem is uh, that it'd be very hard to make a rotating one.
Well, I was thinking they have the professor. They should have the smarts to build a good catapult or a trebuchet.
Yeah, that's what that thing's supposed to do.
Well, those are two different things. The catapult and the trebuchet are two different things.
Yeah.
So here's our catapult, he says, and he spins it. "These are our war clubs." So they have some clubs made up of coconuts and sticks. And he
Wait,
says, "Our
that won't do jack.
no, it wouldn't. Our spears, our coconut bombs, and our shields. And last but not least, our helmets." So he shows them there's the helmets on the ground. And as you can see on the left, there's the castaways waiting behind the tables, ready to take orders. And that's what the skipper starts telling them, that he assigned everybody with a number. And Gilligan starts playing around with the helmet. And he says, "Oh, Gilligan, never mind playing with the helmets." Now he tells them everybody has a number, and every weapon has a number, even the helmets. And the helmets are number one, he says. And I don't know the sequence of the numbers, but he says the coconuts are number three, and so forth.
Oh, I just went right down the line.
Right, he's going
Yeah,
down the
we'll be
line,
able
but
to,
I can't remember what it was.
yeah, we'll get a picture of you here pretty soon. I thought because the spears were number one, the helmets were number four. I thought.
I thought the catapult was number one, isn't it?
No, no,
No,
no.
oh, that's right. It was going in reverse order, so he showed him the catapult first, even though that's last on the list. And the last thing he showed him, which I think is the spears, is number one or something like
We'll get
that.
a good picture of it here in a minute. Because they hover over it a long time.
Yes. So Skipper says, "Now I want you to watch Gilligan."
Yeah. All right. Can we check out catch up on chat real quick?
Sure.
All right. Oops. All right. No, I already read all that. Here we are. Scurvy says Right if I was sitting at the high dollar machine, I bet the blues flows. I said, dang it, I just dropped $2 bringing me a $10 shot of scotch. Well, that's why I sit at the penny slots.
Wow,
I
ten
don't
dollars. Gosh, that sounds expensive. I definitely wouldn't have the money for that.
do a $10 shot. Yeah. No, but I like to sit at the, like, if I do go to a casino, which I haven't been to a casino in like 4 years, I'll bring $20 and that's my limit. And if I reach $20 on the machine, cash out and put that in your pocket.
Yeah.
Then
Well, if
only,
you if you reach $20, that means if you spend it, there's nothing to cash out, right?
well, no, I don't put it all in the machine at one time.
No, but I'm saying if you take 20, so you don't spend more than 20, right?
Right.
Well, if you spend the 20, there's nothing to cash out. Is what I'm saying.
No, but like take your winning tickets of like, so I'll put like $5 in the machine there, and I'll hit the button, and as soon as I hit those recurring credits or things that they pops up on the machine there, as soon as that hits like 2,000 tokens or whatever, I cash out. That's $20, and then I'll put that in my pocket so I do not spend that, and that's how I always end up ahead with leaving the casinos.
Gotcha. Now, when you win something on a slot machine, does it give you a paper or coins?
It gives you a paper to go to
Yeah, it's the
go
same
redeem
here.
everything.
Yeah, they're not allowed to give coins. Only Vegas is.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Mikey says, "Oh yes, absolutely. I used to drink beers, so I'd be 4 beers in on the craps table. LOL. Yeah, you won't catch me playing craps."
Same here. I
Scurvy,
won't either.
Scurvy says it's fun to win big and give the server a nice tip. Oh wait, you tip your servers? The servers have to come around to the tables first. No, but like I can't play blackjack because I have a habit of just like thumb or just like tapping the tables with my fingers as I'm thinking. So there's no way I can play blackjack.
Okay.
And Mikey says, "Poor Gilligan, not being able to show his leadership skills tends to undermine his self confidence." Yeah, and Spidey here says that was not smart.
No,
Mikey
not at
sees,
all.
and Spidey says, "Mikey sees for a lemon pie. Thanks for wrenching." And Mikey says, "Hello, Canadian Maple Spider Man." And Canadian says, "Hail to you, pop culture and gorillas."
Hey, oh, Spidey.
Mike is smiling. Scurvy here says, "Hey there, Canadian Spidey man." And Mikey says, "Skinny Mulligan." We hear about him a lot. Was that like his older friend growing up?
Yeah, he mentioned it before in previous episodes. Probably his only friend.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the only name the writers came up with. But and Spidey says, "How did they spend so much time on that island and not find a way to make booze?" Pop culture curator. Every culture that we know has figured out a way. LOL.
Yeah, we talked
Oh,
about that before in previous episodes. They can ferment so much of the fruit, like bananas and raisins and stuff. Yeah, it'd be easy, but it's a family show. So that's
yeah.
why there's not a big, even when they show the Howls drinking, I think they mention verbally booze like vermouth and gin and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, they have their own. The House have their own secret stash. But here's the thing, Canadian Spider-Man. It was established in the underhand lore that secretly Professor is an alcoholic there. It's ran in his family there for generations there, and he makes his own booze and he keeps the stash secret so none of the others will drink all his booze up there before he can make some more.
Oh, that's
There's,
interesting. Where'd you hear that at?
I just pulled that out of my ass.
Oh, okay.
All right. For some reason, I gave a winking face with the tongue sticking out. And Canadian Spider-Man says that was more than most people can do today. Booze Hound Island, LOL, says Mikey. And Scurvy says that's some fermented coconut or something.
Exactly right. It's easy to ferment stuff. People in jail do it all the time.
Oh yeah, the classic old toilet wine. You know, I should make some of that, but not actually in the damn toilet though. But
Well, something you could do at home. I knew this guy. Uh, he would make apple cider at home. So that's something that's supposed to be fairly easy to make.
Yeah.
I never did it. I'm not really into drinking hard liquor,
Well, I
but
got
I
plenty.
heard it's relatively easy.
I got plenty of dandelions for dandelion wine.
You mean from your yard?
Yeah.
Have you ever made it before?
No.
Okay.
All right. All right. It says. Mikey says, "What a silly looking army of castaways!" Laughing my ass off.
Right.
Uh, and Spidey says, "Why did you wear so much clothing all the time? Survivor episodes on TV are not like this, Pop."
No, they didn't. You're right. Like if you watch Survivor, they're mostly walking around their underwear with no shirts.
Yeah.
But
And
like I said, this was Family Hour. It's the same how when we do our Lost in Space stream, we compare why it's different than Star Trek. Because during the Family Hour, everything is different than during after or later prime time. So when Gilligan's Island aired back in the '60s, it was like between 7 to 8 or 8, 9, and all the shows that were a little more risque were usually shown from 9 to 10.
yeah. And welcome DVB. There. He
Hey,
says, "Hey, Pops. Hope you've been well or better."
thank you, DVB. Good to see you. Yes, I'm getting there. I appreciate that. Glad you could join us.
Yeah. And Mikey says, "Hi, DVB." And DVB says, "You're still alive." That's good.
Yeah, that's always a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And DVB says, "Hey, Mikey Sue's for." Yeah. And Scurvy says, "A free $10 scotch. I meant at a casino. I was kidding since I only even drop a few dollars at that point." Yeah. And Scurvy says, "DVB." And DVB says, "Good to see you, Scurvy." DVB says, "Hail the Canadian Spider-Man." Scurvy says, "Drinks are free on the floor as long as you're playing, but sometimes they can take a while to come with them." Yeah, yeah, they weren't bringing them around at where I was at.
No, because
But
you're not a big spender. If you're a big spender, they're there all the time.
yeah, yeah. And DVB says, "Clark Kent doesn't drink, but Superman probably does from time to time."
Well, he did in
Oh,
Superman 3, 4, 3, but he
oh,
doesn't get drunk. If
yeah,
I'm talking about the one with Richard Pryor.
yeah. And DVB says Superman can drink because alcohol has no effect on him due to his Kryptonian DNA. Oh, geez, he's correct. And DVB
Yes,
says, "Sorry, I hit the end button instead of the space button."
it's okay. I know how it is, especially when I'm on my phone.
Yeah, all right, we're all caught up.
But I have to admit, if this was our only line of defense, I wouldn't have much confidence in the castaways. They don't look very deadly. So Skipper barks out all these orders. Everybody grabs a weapon, and he says to Gilligan, "Now understand. Now, Gilligan, do you understand that?" "No, yes, I think so," says Gilligan. And he says, "Look, Mrs. Howell is A, Mr. Howell is B, Professor is C, Marianne is D, and Ginger is E."
Yep. So right in order.
There it is. And we see number 1 for the helmets. And once again, of course, it skips over number 2.
Two was
Hold on.
probably the spears then.
Oh, we'll show it here.
Shields.
Yes, number 2 is for the shields. And on down the line, right?
Okay, so I had it backwards. Okay.
That's okay. It's no big deal. Fine, Gilligan. All right, everybody. So now they're ready to practice.
Yeah. So
Attention, we're going to try it again. Yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
So the important thing is it's just a game of Battleship is what we're trying to get down. Throw
Right.
yeah.
So now it's Gilligan's turn to take over. And he says, "They're all yours, Gilligan." And he says, "Remember, be rough with them." So Gilligan immediately, quickly starts barking out orders. A1, C4, A7, no, CD, E1, A7, no, CD, E1, A1, B3. And of course, he's confusing. And they're all bumping into each other. and they are confused. And of course, Gilligan questions himself and says A, B, C, D, E. And of course, Skipper sighs and breathes deeply. Don't worry, Skipper, give me a chance. And he says, Gilligan to a monkey, you may be a skipper. It skips over the joke. Sorry about the slides, everybody. So Gilligan tells him that basically if Skipper would leave and leave him alone with the castaways, that he could do a better job, that he thinks that he's too nervous because the skipper's standing there. And he thinks that everybody's watching the skipper. And then he says, all right, Gilligan, continue with the drill. And the skipper walks away and see if any savages have landed. He says he's going to go. I'm sorry, I have to backtrack. He says, okay, continue with the drill. And he says, I'll go to the lagoon and see if any savages have landed. And Gilligan says, all right, now we'll try. And hut. And when he does that, they all drop their weapons and start leaving. And he says, wait a minute, Mr. Howell. And he said, why did everybody leave? And Mr. Howell says, you forgot to say Simon Says. And then Mr. Howell leaves.
Yeah.
And he says, Simon Says, Simon Says. And he says, who's Simon? And Skipper notices that and then leaves. Go ahead.
But you think they'd have enough respect for Gilligan to actually just like halfway listen to him and try, or at least try to tell him, go, well, maybe we should do this, try to sway his mind.
It's possible. I think that they're thinking that he is not going to be competent enough. So this is later on. Gilligan goes out to the lagoon, and this is what he finds. So he lifts up Skipper's hat, and below it is a note, and he picks it up and starts to read it. And he says, I'm completely surrounded by savages, and I know I'll never escape now. And that's when Gilligan realizes what it is, and he starts to panic, and he runs back towards the huts to warn everybody. Savages, savages, professor, professor. Savages, they've captured the skipper. Help, help. So now we cut back to the huts, and of course, Mr. Howell wants to get his playing golf. And Gilligan gets her attention, and he hands the note to the professor, who starts to read it. And it concludes by saying, I'll never escape from them. And of course, Lovey starts to faint. And Mr. Howell says, no, don't faint, Lovey. You know, if I faint when I see someone else faint. And of course, Mr. Lovey says, oh, poor dear. And Gilligan says, I found the note in the hat by the lagoon. And he says, don't worry, Mr. Howell. And he's basically talking about the skipper trading him to take over.
Yeah. And hey, Cam.
Hello, Cam. Good to see you. So now they're talking about who should be in charge. And Mr. Howell says he should be in charge. He's handled major corporations for years, which is the last person I would want in charge, which means they don't actually do anything at all, just bark orders at everybody.
Well, sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
I've never met a CEO of a company who's worth anything. And Gilligan says, wait a minute, I've been trained to take over. And of course, Professor says, now let's weigh all the evidence very carefully. And of course, Gilligan's more anxious, and says, but Professor. And of course, they're not listening to him, and they all walk over they're going to examine the area where they found Skipper's hat. And Professor says, it does look like a scuffle took place here. These footprints and the fact that some of these rocks have been overturned, he says. Come on, we got to find out where they took the skipper, says Gilligan. Well, exactly, Gilligan. But first we must determine, and now he tells them the tidal direction. Well, it's extremely important, Gilligan. The savage mind is instinct. But they're not taking a tour, says Gilligan. Oh, I got to move forward.
Oh.
These
Well, you're
leaves
moving.
will show us that. Sorry, what's that?
Oh, I was gonna say, while you're readjusting there, I could catch up on chat real quick.
That sounds good. And I need to turn the light on. It's getting dark here. I'll be right
Alrighty.
back.
Mikey says, if I were the Savages, we'd do them a favor, just finish them off. And Mikey's giving the drunk emoji. And Mikey says, Gilligan was always considered as a screw up, but there were moments that he shined over the others. This is where I think Gilligan is an idiotic genius. Like, yeah, he made a lot of stuff he does is like idiotic, but he has a lot of good ideas. And Scurvy says, Mikey, you monster. And Cam says that Pop, Gorillas. Hi, Pop and Gorillas. Love me some Gilligan's Isle with some hot babes and booze. Hello, everyone. Yeah, there's only one hot babe, though, and that is Marianne. And DVB says, hey, Cam. Scurvy says, hey, Cam. Hey, PvP, how's it going? He says, hello, everyone. Cam says, hi, Scurvy. Mikey says, Scurvy, some people had the same thoughts back then. Cam says, DBB, hi. Mikey says, hi, Cam. Libet says, Darth Eggnoggy's waving. Oh, man. PvP, we gotta switch your avatar to a carton of eggnog. We gotta do that. And PvP says, just got home 30 minutes ago. Just finished my double bacon burger. Nice.
Hello, BBP.
Yeah. And Scurvy says, Mikey, I was just teasing. Cam says, hey, Mikey, hey, PvP. Mikey says, PvP's not here yet, LOL. And PvP says, too lazy to cook. Cam says, Canadian Spider-Man, hail, web slinger. Mikey says, it's cool, Lemon. And hey there, Kirk. He says, the A-team is in the chat tonight. And Scurvy is waving at... Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, yeah, it's a great chat turnout. So, yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, and Lemon says, hey, is waving at Herc. And Mikey says, hello, Herc. Cam says, hi, Herc. Herc says, hey, Scurvy. PvP says, had the detour home from work. Major accident on the intersection. I usually drive through. Police, ambulance, fire trucks blocking the intersection. Had to pull YouTube and take another route.
Somebody did something dumb and foolish and caused an accident.
Yeah, that's why I like being out in the middle of nowhere. And Herc says a big old fat hello to Mikey Susie 4.
Hello, Herc, good to see you.
Yeah, DVB says Gilligan never thought about making a life raft out of palm trees. You can't give him too much credit. Yeah, he did. They've made like 6 rafts.
Right, they do it in a couple episodes. But they usually end up falling apart. In one episode, they fell apart. In another episode, they were attacked by sharks, and the sharks bit them and tore them apart. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Is that the last chat?
Nope. We got a few more. Herc says, C4, always a great day when you see you in the chat. Always talk about Cam. And Herc says, DBB, how are you? PvP says, hi, Scurvy. DBB says, great, fine, dandy, Herc. How are you? Herc says, you guys are the best. Phantom Boomer and I look for these small format channels. Much better content and great people seem to show up.
I agree. And, I'm not fond of the big ones either. The ones that ignore the chats. No, I'm not a fan. Sorry, go ahead.
And PvP is laughing at what I said when I told him he should switch his avatar to a carton of eggnog.
Okay.
All right.
So this is where the professor is trying to explain to Gilligan that by using these leaves, he's going to try to figure out the tide direction. That way we'll know whether the skipper basically knows what he's explaining. It's hard to, like I said, because the slides misses what he's saying. But what he's saying is that if he throws these leaves in the water, they'll tell him the direction, the tide, whether it's coming in or going out. And he's saying that if the tide's coming in, that they weren't able to leave with the skipper and they're still somewhere on the island. And Gilligan says to And here's something I want to point out. Gilligan says to Mr. Howell, I think the professor's wasting our time. Now, this is season 2, episode 11. This is the first time we see Jim Backus, the actor, with his real glasses. We've talked about it before in previous episodes where you can see the line of from his glasses on his nose, because anybody who wears heavy glasses, it leaves an imprint on your nose. And I pointed out before that you could see. So apparently, excuse me, this is the first time where he says, screw it, I'm just going to put my glasses on. So this is actually more what Jim Backus looked like in real life. And Gilligan says, Mr. Howell, I think the professor's wasting time. And Mr. Howell says, I agree. I'm working on an entirely different theory. And he says, take this note. And Gilligan grabs it and he says, no, don't take it. He says, refer to it. We must think in terms of new evidence. And of course, examining the handwriting in each little letter, which is not going to do them any good.
Yeah. So wait, they're measuring the tide, and they're going to measure the handwriting, but no one thought. Wait, how do you have time to write a note and pin it to his hat?
Yeah, I know it, right? How to get paper? How to get a pencil?
Yeah.
So what they're showing here, they're establishing, is I guess that the professor and Mr. Howell probably would not be very good leaders because they're not very fast thinking on their feet. So just like all eggheads, all think no do. All right, my boy, come on. And Mr. Howell says he'll help him with the professor. And Mr. Howell says, are you through playing with your boats in the bathtub? And he says, please, Mr. Howell, this is very important. And he says, I'm using a scientific approach. And Mr. Howell's scientific approach, I tell you, that egghead wasn't born, he was hatched. And that upsets the professor. And he comes out of the water, and now they start arguing about the skipper. And of course, Mr. Howell says, once I get this on a business-like basis. See, that's what I was talking about. That Mr. Howell is acting like a CEO of a company who cannot think on their own. They can't make a decision without people standing around them telling them what to do. Most of them are just high-paid, overpaid people taking up space and barking out orders, like I said. I will not be intimidated by your wealth, says the professor. And Mr. Howell says, well, I will not be intimidated by your intellectual propaganda. So as they're arguing, I wish you could listen to someone else for a change. Gilligan walks away. That is not true. I'm positive that it's not always positive. Huh. Okay. And we have an edit here. And we have Gilligan back at the girl's hut. And he says, the skipper taught me everything. But he doesn't know what to do. Mary Ann's willing to volunteer. And she's willing to take orders. So she says, all right, let's see. Okay. And she stands there and he puts on the hat, which doesn't really fit well. And he starts giving her orders. 2 buoys at the starboard beam. Of course, she doesn't know what that means. Well, what's that? So he's explained to her how Skipper told him to squint his eyes and try to look mean. She says, oh, well, you do look very different. But when you got to be a skipper, well, you do look like the skipper, she says. Uh-oh. It's hard to do this without skipping so much of what they're saying. I apologize.
Yeah.
And of course, the hat falls in front of his head, and he can't see. And Mary Ann grabs it off his head. Now, I think you ought to go out and tell the others, she says, who the skipper really is. So she's trying to build up his confidence. So he says,
At least
I think
someone is.
Right, at least somebody is. She says, now you go out and tell them. Go out and show them. And he says, I can. And he puts on the hat and he runs into the side of the door. And he says, I think. And she grabs the hat. He walks out and she opens up this case here, which coincidentally it's the same case that was in the earlier
Yeah.
scene inside Skipper and Gilligan's hut where Gilligan tried to lift it and he couldn't.
Yeah.
So once
No, no.
again, go ahead.
Oops, sorry. Sorry, finish what you're saying.
I was just going to say they pretty much have only one interior of a hut built for this TV show. And every time it's supposed to be the girls' hut or the Howells' hut or the professors or Gilligan and Skipper's, it's the same set. And they just slightly rearrange it differently. But sometimes you can tell it's the same set because some of the furniture and props are in the same location. And in this case, like I said, the suitcase is in the same location where earlier in the episode, Gilligan tried to lift it to show the skipper that he was strong and he wasn't able to lift it. Go ahead, Gorilla.
No, I just noticed that she just had to flip up a shirt and all of a sudden magically sitting there with the open was a pin right in the center of the thing.
Right, a big safety pin. And it's interesting, now that I think about it, I haven't seen those in years. I don't even know if they still sell them. Because those were made back when people used to put real diapers on their kids, and I don't think anybody does that anymore. Now everybody uses those disposable, horrible things that fill up landfills. And Gilligan, of course, trying to boost up his own confidence, says, I know I can, I know I can. And she puts on the hat, which now seems to fit better now that she put the pin in there. And he tells everybody 10 hut. And of course, they don't know how to stand at attention. They're all civilians. If anything, I'd say Ginger does the best job at it, the closest thing to it. Oh, I'm the new skipper here, and don't any of you forget it. So they all start arguing. He says, now pipe down and shut up. And they shut up, and they're all surprised. And he says, now, I'm going to be skipper, because that's the way the skipper wanted it. Well, any questions? And they start asking questions. And he tells them, I can't remember what the words that he says, but it basically tells them to shut up. And of course, he says left face, and they all point towards the opposite direction and the wrong directions. And Gilligan realizes they need a lot of training. So he says, hup. And now, as where Gilligan explains to him that he built a trap. And he says to trap one of the savages. It says when he steps on the vine, it'll trigger this rock. And it will bag him like a sack full of potatoes. And then we'll force him to take us to where the skipper is. Yes, sir. He says, you got it? And they say, yes, sir. So he tells the professor, that's why I hate when it skips frames. I can't remember what exactly he told the professor. See, Professor, that's it. You climb that tree and act as a lookout. And the professor says, yes, sir. Mr. and Mrs. Howell, go get the first aid supplies. And they say, yes, sir. All right, sir. And the girls, he says, you go back to the huts. Yes, sir. And then she says, Captain. And she scares him. She touches him on the back, which scares him. And she says, may I volunteer? And of course, what he says now would never, ever be allowed on television these days. But Ginger says, may I volunteer? And he says, a woman's place is in her hut. So, yeah, they wouldn't allow that now.
Cancel that misogynist bastard. Cancel him and everything. Delete everything. I'm being facetious here.
Right, in real life, yeah, but when he says a woman's place is in her hut, the women would all be complaining. That's not fair. That's sexist. That's misogynistic. Blah blah blah. On down the line, all these accusations. But then everybody knows that if a war kicked out, the savages survived, or the enemy. I mean, the savages arrived, or the enemy, and start shooting. The women would be the first to run, and everybody knows that.
Well, no. Well, it all stems back to back when we were living in small communities. There, a civilization cannot survive. 100 men and one woman in a civilization would not survive. But if you had 100 women and one man, that civilization could still survive. it's inherently in our DNA there. It's been we've been raised to protect our women and protect our children there there so that we can go on. Not it's nothing to do with misogynist or misogyny or nothing.
No, but
It's
what I'm
about
saying is if I'm
protecting and
saying,
surviving.
yeah, but I'm saying if you have 100 women and one man, like let's just say, let's compare this. Okay, I know here on Gilligan's Island they talk about savages from another island, but let's compare this to like the old days with the Wild Wild West where we had cowboys and Indians. If you had a small town that was 100 women and one man, the Indians would immediately raid that town and capture all the women, and everybody knows that. If you had 100 men in that town and one woman, they stand a much better chance of fighting off and defending their town, and that's just a fact. I mean, I know people want to argue about their politics, but men are physically stronger. That's just a physical fact, and they can't change it no matter what they think in their head. Unless you got a woman who's big structured, maybe like 6 foot something and strong, sure. And
Oh,
there were
Butch
women
lifting
like
it.
that. There were women like that in the frontier that were strong. They ran bars, and they could be their own bouncers. So it does exist, but generally it doesn't. In a lot of cases, it doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I issued my orders. He says, "Oh, come on, Gilligan, you're not being fair." She says, "Oh, all's fair in war and love," he says, and he starts stepping back. No, really, give me a chance. I'd be the perfect spy. And here's where he makes a mistake, and I do agree with this. And she does correct him. And she says, "No, really, give me a chance. I'd be the perfect spy." And he says, "No, spying is a man's work," which we all know is wrong.
Oh
Women
no,
are some
that's
of
not.
the women are some of the best spies.
Yeah, yeah. It's not because she's a woman. There, it's like there's a reason why. When we sent their spies into Japan and Vietnam, there we didn't send the guy from the Netherlands there. We sent a guy with Japanese descent or a guy with Vietnamese descent. You
Right,
know, to blend in.
or women because they'll use their ways to lure men in and trick them and find out
Yeah.
details and secrets.
Oh, okay. The person with the heritage of the country we're trying to go into.
Yes.
Hmm, that may.
And now she starts mentioning about female spies from World War II. I know, but we have to get information from a savage, he says. See, what they're saying, like I said, this is a childish show. It's built for family or made for family, written for family. So what they're not going to say is what I mentioned with the Indians, and that is if you have women as part of your tribe, that's going to be the first target from the enemy. They're going to come, they're going to want to take the women and kidnap them. And we all know why. I mean, we all heard about what happened when we abandoned Afghanistan. We all heard about what happened with the women that were left behind.
Oh
So they're
yeah.
all, to put it nicely, I'll just say they're all turned into slaves. But here's what she's telling, but I could lure him into the trap. She is right about that. But that's wishful thinking, and that's one on one. I would say if she's going to go up against a headhunter one on one, she might have a chance. But if she's surrounded by 10 headhunters, I don't think she'd have a chance. Now he's just slouching. Well, I'm just, and she's like, walk over there like this and wiggle, she says. And he says, oh, I got it. And as they're talking, they hear the trap get sprung. And Gilligan says, the trap, it worked. Here, everybody starts running. And you can hear muffling inside and yelling. And they said, it sounds like English. And now they're saying, in order to get past the sentry, who was the professor. And Mr. Howell comes running in and says, I tell you, it's a trick. And Mr. Howell grabs a stick and starts pounding on it. And you can hear, ooh, screams from inside. And you can hear a voice from inside yelling, Gilligan. And Mr. House is very clever. They know how to, I can't remember the term he used, but basically impersonate in their language.
Yeah.
And now Skipper yells out, it was a test for Gilligan. Put him down. Is that you, Skipper? Says Gilligan. Of course it's me, Gilligan. You expecting Dr. Livingston?
All right.
So they
Should we
heard
catch up?
toss. Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
keep
Thank
going.
you. Well, I was just going to say they tossed the club, and then they open up the top and it's skipper on the inside. Go ahead.
Okay. Mikey says, I agree, Herc 130. DVP says, yeah, LOL, yes, I remember now, Pops. I don't know what we remember. Huh. PvP says, a U turn, I meant. DVP says, I used to watch this show every day after school back in the old days.
Oh yeah, the good old days.
Mikey says, this little water outlet for Gilligan's Island was part of the Universal Studios tour, too. Oh,
Negative,
cool. Oh, was it?
negative, negative. No, the lagoon. This is a completely different studio than Universal. So the set for the lagoon, it was used for a lot of TV shows and movies. But the Universal lot is located in a different part of Los Angeles, and the Universal Lake was only built for the Jaws attraction. It's funny how persistent that rumor is that people think that that's the Gilligan's Island Lagoon, but it's definitely, positively not.
Sometimes didn't they share different studios share sets?
Nope.
Oh,
Well, yeah,
uh,
they do share sets. They'll rent out certain sound stages and sets, but the attraction at Universal Studios that has the fake shark from Jaws is a different body of water than the lagoon here from Gilligan's Island. They're both two different things.
okay. Mikey says U-Turn was a great horror film and had a sequel. LOL. I actually haven't watched this show in about 30 years, so this is a nice blast from the past. Well, you're welcome
I'm
there,
glad.
DVP.
Yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah. And PvP says, hey, Mikey, the accident looked like a real horror show. The car I could see was mangled, whole front and totally smashed.
Oh man, yeah, somebody did something really foolish then. That's sad. Hopefully there
Yeah.
was no kids in the car.
Yeah. Mikey says, oh my God, hope the driver's okay. DBB says, yeah, I used to watch in reruns in the afternoon. And here is Stream Elements promoting my channel there. We
Yep,
actually just
check
had
out Gorilla's Random Thoughts. Check out his channel. It's fantastic.
we actually just watched the first two episodes of Justified today.
How was that?
Oh, good. They have a strong first season. And DVB's giving a thumbs up and fire at Cam Cam. No, Justified is really good. I like Timothy Oliphant in it. And Marianne secretly loved Gilligan, even off screen. Oh, is that a wink wink there, Mikey?
Well, hold on. On the show, you could tell she had a crush, but they never acted upon it because it was family hour, and the producer, Sherwood Schwartz, said it was absolutely no fraternization between the characters because it was a family show and he knew kids were watching. In real life, no, there was no affair between Don Wells and Bob Denver. They were both married separately to other people, and they did not cheat on their spouses. Sorry, go ahead, Gorilla.
Yeah. And PvP says, well, there was an ambulance, police, and fire truck there, so I doubt it. Don't know if any fatalities, but it looks bad, Mikey. And Cam Cam says, Herc, the feelings are
Reciprocated.
reciprocated, my friend. Always a pleasure to see you as well. And Mikey says, glad that you weren't part of it, PvP. Woo!
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, PvP says some really bad drivers out there. Oh, don't worry. I went on a rant about that on a short here a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, the worst part is you always have one idiot that drives like a maniac, and they don't care about anybody else. And when they cause an accident, they end up hurting everybody else, and then they walk out of it scot-free. I've seen that so many times. I saw a drunk that caused a pileup in San Francisco. 3 or 4 cars. People were going off to the hospital, severely injured, and the drunk got out of the car, not a scratch.
Yeah. Well, I never understood how you could have these 70, 80 car pileups until I went up to the cities there, and it turned out to be a ice storm and all that. I was going 20 miles an hour, and I was behind a semi. I was still sliding a little bit. It was complete ice-covered roads there, and every 500 feet there's a car that ditched there, but yet people are still flying past it at 50, 60, 70 miles an hour.
Foolish.
And then they wonder why these big pileups happen.
Yeah, where I'm from in the Central Valley, California, I lived right next to a highway called 99, and it's infamous, and it made the news many times, where we would get thick fog, and you're told to slow down in the fog, but people just, they didn't listen. And one time we had a pileup of over 200 cars because people were driving and they didn't know until they by the time they saw the crash in front of them, there was no time to stop. And we've had pilots that go on for over an hour. And then also in California, over on the I-5, Interstate 5, they would get dust storms, and the same thing would happen. You couldn't see in front of your hood of your car, and there's huge pileups that would go on and on and on.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do with Mother Nature, right?
Yeah. PvP says, "Me too, Mike. I've been in near a few close calls with idiot drivers through red lights. Oh yeah, usually texting." Canadian Spider-Man says, "Great to see you, PvP. I hope you got to the lake today." And DVB says, "Gilligan's Island kind of reminds me of that show Lost. Only the stories in Gilligan's Island make more sense." LOL.
Yeah, I would rather watch Gilligan's Island than Lost any day.
Alrighty. So Herc says, "Canadian Spidey. We were just talking about quality people on this chat, and you show up. Point made." PvP
Exactly.
says, "Spidey. Nope, Spidey. 9 boring hours at the office. At least weekend almost here."
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. I still got 2 more days. And Cam says, "Hey, Spidey, we got together. We've got to get together and stream. I was on with Jen's last night for a bit." And PvP says they have safety pins, but all I've seen in recent years are garbage. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Cancel the cancelers. Yeah.
I
Cancel the show. End credits. LOL.
wonder if that's a
Cam,
reference to Lost.
yeah, Cam says, "Shit, more thunderstorms are flying tomorrow. Well, I hope your house stays safe there, Cam." And PvP says, "Lucky one man, I volunteer." There ain't enough Viagra. And he goes, "If you had 100 men and only one woman, the town wouldn't be worth living in." Yeah, but at least then you wouldn't have all the frickin' nagging. The
Yeah,
woman's
that's true.
the woman's places in my hut should be the line. Mata Hari, great spy from World War One, I believe. I don't remember Mata Hari.
Yeah, you can look it up. There's a history behind that.
Yeah.
Well, there's also a famous chef, a female. She just passed away a few years ago, Julia Child, and she was very well known. She had her own TV show and everything, and she was a spy too. And PPP says, "Have some self confidence. You can outshine those other dudes." That is true, lemon pie.
Yeah. And Mikey says, "PvP, too many issues fighting over the one man, LOL." Yeah, too much nagging for him to cut the line, fix this, fix that. And here is Jim's landscaping uh, channel. Make sure to check that out. Uh, Mikey says, "Thank you for the correction." Kim says, "F them all and let God sort it out." Okay.
Yep.
Does Universal Studios still have a giant King Kong on the tour?
No, I heard they dismantled it.
Oh, they did?
That's what I've heard. And maybe it's like Jill was just saying the other night on her stream. Like Universal Studios used to have like Back to the Future the ride, and they had like ET the ride and all that, and they tore all those down for the crappy Fast and the Furious rides and stuff like that. So yeah, every now and then when they figure the rides are old, they'll tear them down and put something more modern up, which is not always better.
Yeah, but it's, safety and all that.
Well, those other rides were safe. It's just that they follow the current fads. Like Fast and the Furious, I admit the movies are popular and there's a lot of people that like them. I don't personally like them, but a lot of people do. So naturally, they're going to build a ride around it.
Oh, the first couple were good. I think the last one I watched was Tokyo Drift.
I don't know. I admit I watched the first one or two, but I come to the realization it's like with The Rock, Vin Diesel. I can't stomach him. He's like the opposite of being an actor. He's just I don't know why people watch him because he cannot act.
Yeah.
So that's the same reason why I don't like The Rock. I can't stand his movies either.
Yeah. And Cam says, I've heard Universal no longer has the Jaws attraction.
Yeah, they probably got rid of that by now too. I'm sure that's the lake that Mikey was referring to earlier. I've been to
Okay.
Universal Studios, but it's been at least 15 years, so I'm sure it's probably completely different compared to the last time I was there. I mean, it was so I was there, like I said, 15 years ago. They had a backdraft from the exhibit or a ride or experience, backdraft experience from the movie Backdraft with Kurt Russell, and I know there's no way that's still going to be there, so I'm sure it's completely different. But it's too bad they took down the Back to the Future ride. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. DVB says last time I visited Universal Studios was 2007. It was cool. Mikey says that's true, Cam Cam. Mikey says thank you for the info, Pop.
Oh, no problem.
And PvP says black ice is very bad.
Yeah, that's
Problem was
another
it
problem
wasn't
they
even.
had too, right?
The problem was it wasn't even black. You could tell it was freezing rain at the time because it was still raining out.
No, they call it black ice because it's actually transparent and you can't see it on the road. It looks like just like you're looking at like asphalt. So
Yeah.
even though it's called black ice, it's not black ice. It's just they say that because it's transparent and you can't see it through the asphalt.
Yeah. All right. So Cam Cam says Mikey, that's a shame. Always wanted to go, but never did. Even when I lived in San Diego, dummy. Been to Disney World a couple times, but not since 1991. Wouldn't go now.
I agree. I've been Disney World, but I was to Disneyland, and only because I was drugged there against my will. And but now, I would anybody even tries to take me to any Disney attraction, I will kill you. There's no way you're gonna drag me into one of those horrible places. I was in the Magic Mountain. I wanted to go to roller coasters. I didn't want to be around a bunch of sissies and screaming kids. No offense to sissies and screaming kids out there, but I preferred Magic Mountain, where it was more adults, didn't have the little kids in the way, and you could ride 10 to 15 roller coasters a day. In Disneyland, you're going to spend most of your day standing in line. So, yeah, no, that's not for me.
See, that's
And all
where I
the
like
rides,
Valley Fair.
what's that?
That's why I like Valley Fair small lines and Arles Park is small lines.
Well, that's fine as long as they have killer roller coasters. But like with Disney, when every ride is designed for little kids, it stinks and it's boring. I mean, a lot of Disneyland when I was there, they had benches everywhere, and it's the parents just sitting there bored, waiting for their kids to get off the rides. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not ever going back there again. Oh, and I remember the worst was the Indiana Jones experience at Disneyland. They had the ride, which is kind of cool, where it's like a reenactment of you in the jalopy car, and it has an actor playing Indiana Jones, and it's got the he's running from the boulder and all that. That was kind of cool. But then they have what was called the Indiana Jones experience or something, and it was specifically only designed for little tiny children, like kindergarten, first grade. And you don't find that out until after you stand in line for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and you get in there, and it's a storyteller, a woman saying, "Okay, kids, come up close, come up close. Let me tell you the story of Indiana Jones." I was like, "Oh my god!" And I got out of there. Oh my god, it was the worst. That was the last time I was at Disneyland. In fact, I swore I'd never return again. In my opinion, if you're going to make a park for the entire family, you should have rides for adults, and then you should also have ride for kids. Not where every single ride is designed for little kids, because then you're alienating the adults, and the adults are only there to please the kids. That's not a good experience. I think everybody should be able to have fun, but that's my opinion.
Yeah. PBB says I'm always down on winter roads or slow down. And wait, we got Julia. Wait, it's Cam Cam says
Huh?
at Julia Child was a gem and excellent chef. Didn't know she was a spy.
Oh,
Oh, okay,
absolutely.
okay. He put the ad in there. That's what confused me. Here's PVB's channel for all your rock and roll needs. And DVB says that sucks about dismantling King Kong pops.
It does. It was a pretty good experience. They had the King Kong, and it was kind of mixed with earthquake, where you're on a tram and then it starts shaking and the ground breaks. There's an earthquake and there's like a flood of water, and then that's when King Kong pops up. It was kind of cool at the time.
All right. Here's Oiler Greg's channel for spoiler-free reviews. And then DVB says, last time I went in 2007, the Back to the Future ride and backdraft experience was still there. Good memories, Pops.
Oh yeah, see, there's somebody else that saw them. Absolutely,
Yeah. DVB says the backdraft experience was intense. Very cool, though. I don't know what the backdraft experience was.
it was based on a movie about firefighters starring Kurt Russell. So you're going through this building, and all these fires are erupting around you and stuff like that. It was okay. It wasn't bad.
Okay. Yeah. PBB says, seems they are dismantling everything good. That's why we hang out on YouTube streams discussing quality culture.
Yep.
Well, I can understand taking like a Gilligan's Island ride out because Gilligan's Island hasn't been on the air for 60 years. So I
That's
can see
true.
stuff like that. And Back to the Future, that was 80s, you know?
Yep.
And what's the other one you mentioned? Take
Backdraft, which was late '80s, early '90s.
Yeah, so they've had their 30-year run. And DVB says Magic Mountain was incredibly fun. They
It
want to get,
is. It's great.
yeah, they just want to get new stuff in for instead of showing the exact same stuff over and over again. That's why
Well,
Valley Fair gets a new ride every year.
right with Magic Mountain, they're always competing to have the most best roller coasters. So that's the parks to go to. The ones that are competing to have the best and the most extreme. The only bad thing I have to say about Magic Mountain is you get a lot of arrogant teenagers and college kids that cut in lines, and they would start fights because people in line say, "Hey, don't cut in front of me," and they would try to intimidate and start fights. That's the only bad thing about Magic Mountain. But other than that, I'd go back. I'd go to Magic Mountain any day. In fact, I had yearly passes, and I would go several times a year, and I'd never get tired of it. Unlike Disneyland, where I could be there 1 hour and I want to get the hell out and never return.
Yeah. DVB says Twisted Colossus, Tatsu, Goliath, Ninja, etc. Love
Goliath.
Gilligan.
Yep, that's Magic Mountain. Yes.
Yeah. And Mike says anything Disney now evil and they kidnap kids. True story. I don't know about
Yeah.
the kidnapping part. I'm not going to spread that rumor.
Well, apparently Disney's the one spreading the rumor. That's why they're fighting against DeSantis in Florida. And it is true. The good news is that park attendance for Disneyland, Disney World, and all them is dropping like a rock. And I'm so glad to hear that the people are finally waking up and not going to that place.
Yeah. No,
Everybody
but
needs to boycott Disney and anything they sell or have. That
yeah.
includes all their movies and any movies that are part of their subsidiaries, like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, any of that. Don't pay for it anymore. Stop watching any television network that they own. Don't even watch Hulu.
Yeah. Well, me, I haven't heard from anything official on that, so I'm not going to spread that. So
Official
I know they're
about what?
grooming kids because that came straight from their PR person. There.
No, it came from the CEO, Bob Iger.
No, well, I was talking about that PR lady that says our not so secret gay agenda and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
that lady. So PB has pop equals Disney knives.
Yes, I hate Disney. Yes,
DVP says the backdraft experience was like being on the actual backdraft film set, fire and all. It was awesome. Well,
it
cool.
was.
All right,
And
we're
now
all
it
caught up.
probably would never. Now it would probably be considered too dangerous, and they would never show it. I'm sure. And now is where where we left off is where the skipper was caught in this trap, and he's saying, "Let me out of here." And he explained to them it was just a test for Gilligan. And he says, "Gilligan, get me out of this thing." I'm not sure why, but Mrs. House says we must be certain that those natives can be terribly crafty. But then she uses her little specs and says, "Oh, it is the skipper." So they walk over to greet them and says, "All right, line up, prepare to move back to camp." Sorry. So basically, Gilligan's still barking out orders. And the skipper interrupts and says, "Wait a minute, Gilligan, I want to explain exactly what happened." He says, "But Skipper, you said there was no savages." So that's what said. Skipper said there have been no savages the whole time. And he says, that's exactly the point I'm getting at, Professor. If you look inside, there's a label there inside that hat. And it says that it's from France. And Mrs. Howe says it's an original. I had it made specially, so it belonged to Mrs. Howe. You think the
Oh,
professor would have known that, but oh well.
yeah. Was it France or was it? I thought it was Singapore.
Paris? One of those.
Oh, yeah.
And they realized it was Mrs. Howe's hat that she had left on the lagoon.
Yeah.
And Gilligan is still power hungry and barking out orders. He said, "Line up." And Skipper says, "Take it easy, Gilligan." Now, when I found this out up there, it just, all right, sir, pipe down. He still keeps telling him to pipe down. I said, "Line up," but I mean it. 10 hut. And of course, confused, Skipper puts on the hat. And Gilligan says, "Fall in and follow me back to camp." Up, 2, 3, 4. And there they are marching back. And of course, Skipper's still yelling at Gilligan, but Gilligan's not listening to any of it. And Gilligan keeps barking orders, and they're trying to warn him. And unfortunately, he falls off the cliff because he's not paying any attention. And we cut to Gilligan hanging from a bush off the cliff. And we cut to the next. Looks like evening, because it looks like the sun's setting. And they're watching Gilligan bark out orders, and they're talking about how impressive it is. And Mrs. Howe says, "He looks marvelous. Doesn't he look smart?" And we find out it's actually they're complimenting the gorilla. And there's Gilligan practicing with the gorilla. And the gorilla's giving Gilligan orders, and the gorilla hits Gilligan in the stomach. And we have our closing credits. There we go. They'll have to make the best of things. It's an uphill climb.
Yeah. Yeah, and he falls off the cliff.
Now, here's what I mentioned earlier. Is you'll see where it says United Artists Television Production and CBS. So that's what I meant. It's definitely not Universal. It's a completely different studio. All right, let me get prepared here for the next episode. How are we doing on the chat?
We got a couple here. DVB says,
Perfect.
not sure how it is now, but Universal Studios used to have a show where they showed you all the practical effects were achieved in their classic films. Oh, cool. Pop's the one I have to go to for that. Pop wanted to kill anyone taking him to Disneyland was hilarious. Mikey Suze, that was a cool experience, DVB. I got to play with some of their practical props. Oh, cool. I just looked up that this show was originally released in 1964 by CBS. Oh, yeah.
Well, season one. This is season 2. So, like that last episode was aired on December 2nd, 1965. Sorry about that. Is that the last chat?
Oh, we just got a couple more just came in.
No
Can
problem.
says, that sounds great. I've heard nothing but good things about the Universal Parks. And Mikey says, did you want us in panel to discuss the mosquitoes? No, we're gonna
No,
go
right.
through. No, we're gonna go just the two of us here. We're gonna try to. We'll not speed through it, but we're gonna try to get through this fast here because we've already been on for an hour and a half here, wanting to, and we still got a whole another episode to go through.
Yeah, I try to keep these shorter than the horror stream. I don't want this to go for 4 or 5 hours. So. And I think we have one more with Herc.
Oh, yep. It goes, I dropped out. My computer decided to do an update right in the middle of the show. I am back. Oh, you couldn't stop the update? Because I always schedule my updates for when I'm asleep.
Well, that's what mine, that's exactly a Herc. That's what mine did. That's what I was saying earlier. is I have my laptop all ready to go for this stream. I take my dogs out, bring them in, feed them. I sit in front of the computer and find out that it rebooted. And it says, "Do you want to install Windows 11?" And it's like, oh my God, I'm so sick of seeing that. I know there's an app I can download that'll turn that off. I'm going to do that because I'm tired of this stupid thing trying to force me to install Windows 11. Okay, so our next episode is called "Don't Bug the Mosquitoes," and this episode premiered on December 9th, 1965. And the description is the rock band The Mosquitoes arrive on an island for some much needed R&R, but the castaways try to make their lives miserable, so they want to leave and take them with them. All right, here we go. And we have our opening titles. Now, here's what I want to point out, a bit of trivia, is we all know this famous song that they're singing. Aboard this tiny ship, the mate was a mighty sailing man. Okay, we all know the song. We've all heard it before thousands of times over the years. It's sung by a group called the Wellingtons. So at the end, when they show the end credits and it says who wrote or who sings the beginning song and the ending song for every episode, it says the Wellingtons. And if you're asking, well, who are the Wellingtons? They star in this episode as the Mosquitoes. So when they see this band here, there's like a parody of the Monkees / the Beatles, and they call them the Mosquitoes. That's actually the Wellingtons who sing the theme song for Gilligan's Island. So in this episode, as they start to sing, pay attention to their voice and their music. And how, okay, the music doesn't have the tropical sound and the sea shanty sound of the opening titles and the closing. But if you listen to the voice of the singers, you can tell it's the same people that sing the opening and closing songs of Gilligan's Island. So we have our castaways headed out, and the storm is getting worse, and our heroes are fighting to save the minnow. Oh, and there's another something else I want to mention too, and I'll cover this next week. Is a video hit the internet I think about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it's a man who bought. Okay, first of all, originally there were 3 or 4 minnows, so there's like a real minnow, a practical one, of an actual boat. Then they built one that they punched a hole in for a prop to sit on the side for that we're looking at now behind Gilligan. Then they had a completely fake one for the episode where the whole boat fell apart. So for the series, they had a total of like 2 or 3 minnows. But a man was able to find the original minnow and restore it completely. And it looks absolutely fantastic, beautiful. And there's a video that hit YouTube about 3 or 4 months ago where he shows a tour of the inside of the boat. And it looks a lot bigger on the inside than it does the outside. Because I always wondered, that boat seems kind of small for 7 people. But if you check out that video next week, I'll put a link and I'll show a couple clips. But once you get inside, you can tell there's plenty of room. It has a kitchen. There's like a couple different bedrooms. I mean, and the guy is so lucky that he has the actual minnow and he completely restored it to its original condition. It looks absolutely beautiful. It's worth a lot of money too, by the way. And here we have our opening credits. And of course, once again, directed by Jack Arnold, who directed The Incredible Shrinking Man and Creature from the Black Lagoon, among many other Hollywood classics. So we have Skipper trying to sleep, and we have Gilligan listening to the AM radio. Yeah. And we hear the rock music of the Mosquitoes.
Yeah, and just a couple episodes ago, Gilligan was bitching about Skipper snoring.
I know, exactly right.
Yeah.
So now they're mentioning the announcer on the radio station. We're featuring the music of America's #1 rock and roll group. And the new song starts. And of course, Gilligan starts dancing wildly. And he wakes up Skipper. And Skipper says, "Gilligan, will you stop that?" And Gilligan says, "What a grouch." And Gilligan gets out of bed and steps on Skipper's hand, unfortunately. And of course, he's just, Gilligan, get out of here. He's tired of the noise, and his hand is sore, of course, because Gilligan stepped on it. And now the howls are trying to sleep, but the noise is too loud, and they're awake. And Mrs. House says, "Thurston, do you think we're having a nightmare?" And he says, "Even Sigmund Freud never dreamt of rock and roll." Oh, some dumb damn fool playing the radio loud. And he says at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Now the Howls, they probably like classical music there, and the Skipper, he seems like a bluegrass kind of guy.
Possibly. And
The
now the skippers
professor,
have said, go
yeah,
ahead.
and the professor probably prefers the classical too.
I would think so. And Skipper says, "I'm going to kill Gilligan and then I'll break the radio." And he says, "No, first he says, I'll break the radio and then I'll kill Gilligan." And he says, "No, I'll kill Gilligan and then I'll break the radio." And we have Gilligan here still listening to the same music. And at the same time, Mr. Howell and the skipper come out of the bushes because they both want to stop the music. And Gilligan, and they say, "I sorely miss the sweet sounds of excuse me."
Right, you're fine.
Mr. House says, "That's the the mosquitoes. I'll turn off that infernal machine at once." And Gilligan says, "Oh, it's a matter of taste. If you want to taste the radio, turn it off," says Skipper.
Yeah,
Gilligan
then
turns
but
off the radio, but they can still hear the music. Go ahead,
yeah,
Gorilla.
and notice that the music blended in right where they turned the radio off. It's like they didn't even skip a beat.
Exactly. And that's when Gilligan says it is off. Then where's that music coming from? And Mr. House says the lagoon. And so they all start running that direction. And now we have the introduction to the Wellingtons / mosquitoes. So these are the guys who sing the opening and closing songs for Gilligan's Island. So there's wind blowing and sand because apparently they're trying to make it look like they had just gotten dropped off. And there's a stock photo of a video of a helicopter leaving.
That helicopter looked way too small to carry that luggage. Their instruments, then what, 4 of them?
Yeah, I'd like to wonder how all that fit inside that helicopter, right?
Yeah, it's like a one-man helicopter, ain't it?
Maybe 2. I don't even see a luggage rack.
Yeah.
But that's what they get for using stock photos.
Yeah. Well, that's the first thing I noticed on this.
So here we are, cuts to later, and the mosquitoes are performing. And here comes Mr. Howell, Skipper, and Gilligan, and they're all excited. "Don't look now, but I think we're surrounded by savages," says Mr. Howell. Savages, man, the Savages record for Safari Records, so they're joking about. Apparently, there's another group called the Savages. And those wigs
Yeah.
are god awful. I doubt that's their hair.
Yeah.
And of course, Skipper's just bored. We're glad to see. Go ahead.
Oh, I can look it up real quick.
Oh,
You said it's a
up
Wellington?
Wellingtons. Wellington. We covered in a prior episode where Sherwood Schwartz, when I was reading from the book of Inside Gilligan's Island, was talking about the point where they were trying to write the song, and they were trying to come up with the song for Gilligan's Island, and he had to do it over a weekend. He only had 1 or 2 days to come up to find a band, come up with a song, and record a song by Monday. So he was able to find these guys, the Wellingtons, and him, with the help of him and a friend of his, they wrote the music, and they were able to perform the song by Monday. They were lucky to find a studio that was open on a Sunday.
Yeah. Can I share it?
Go for it.
All right. Share screen. Now, there's only three of them in this picture, but this is what they looked out without the wigs. There. Then if
That
you
make,
scroll down, there's a comparison right there.
that makes more sense. Yes.
Yeah. So I can blow it up there. Then so yeah. Then there's what they looked like in the show. So yeah, those
Yes.
are all wigs.
I wonder if the wigs were almost like a joke too. I wonder if they were like exaggerated to look fake. So Skipper's all excited. Skipper immediately assumes that they've been rescued. And Gilligan says it's the Mosquitoes, my favorite musical group. And they said, I thought you said we were going to get away from our fans. So the Mosquitoes thought that it was a desolate island with nobody on there. Yeah, you said this island was deserted and we'd be all alone. That helicopter pilot told me this place was out of sight. We must be way out, get a load of these characters, they say, looking at the castaways. And of course, Mr. Howell takes offense and says, allow me to introduce myself. I am Thurston Howell III, personal advisor to the Bolshoi Ballet and Lawrence Welk. Lawrence Welk, everybody, was for the younger audience. It was a weekly TV show that was mostly for old people that played old music. And Lawrence Welk was the host of the show. And I remember when I was a kid, my grandma and grandpa used to watch it. But I found it very boring. You, sir, look like Attila the Hun or a Yale man, he says to one of the singers. Allow me to introduce my group. And then Gilligan says, I know who you are. That's Bango, Bongo, and Irving. And this one's Irving. Irving, well, never mind. And here's where Skipper proceeds to tell them that they've been shipwrecked here for a long, long time. And we've been waiting for someone like yourself to come along and rescue us. And he thinks about it and says, well, I'll tell you what we'll do, Commodore. If your group will cooperate with the mosquitoes. And then
They'll
Mr.
take.
Howell says, go ahead.
Well, basically what they're saying is, if you cooperate with us and do as we say, we'll take you home with us.
Right, we'll take you back with us. You know, where we heard that before, right? And then Mr. Howell, of course, why couldn't it have been the New York Philharmonic? And then he looks at the guy sitting on the ground. He says, really, your trousers. So we cut to the inside hut. I think it's Skipper and Gilligan's hut because they're laying in the hammock. And the mosquitoes are playing the music. And Professor says, so that's what's happened to our civilization since we've been gone. And Gilligan says, yeah, they're the mosquitoes. Oh, worthwhile hobby, nature boy. Interesting, very, very interesting, says the professor. I'll see you later, Gilligan. So the professor leaves. Marianne, Ginger, come on. And here they come, and Marianne's all excited. And she's basically, anybody who's seen video footage or film footage of how females used to act around the beetles. That's how Marianne's acting around these mosquitoes. So overexcited and hands on, I'll put it that way, hands on. So he's backing away from her, saying, please, please, no physical contact. And she's yelling, oh, Ginger, hurry up. Hey, who is this Ginger? Mrs. Moneybags? She's kind of like a girl. You know, she's kind of, and here comes Ginger, and they all suddenly, all eyes are on Ginger. Like you said, Ginger's a girl. Well, welcome to the island, she says. They are cute, she says. And they all are raising to introduce themselves. And it says, Bingo? Fingers I can go way up to my elbows. Sorry, it's missing some of the jokes here. And now the lead singer is trying to fight Bingo back. And he says, back, back, Bingo. And he tells her, just don't handle the merchandise, huh? And Marianne's describing them. One of them's blonde and one of them's dark. Yeah, it's Smorgasbord, says Ginger. And here's the lead singer. It says, "Peace and quiet. That's all we wanted. Peace and quiet. We came here to get away from girls." And here comes Mrs. Howell. "Oh, there you are. Thurston said you needed haircuts." And she pulls out a big pair of scissors. And he says, "Spit man, it's the barber of Seville." And they all go running and she chases after them.
Huh.
So Gilligan comes into the hut and says, "Skipper, Skipper, I have got some good news for you." And Skipper says, "It's certainly a good day for it, Gilligan." "You bet. A nice trip home." And Gilligan says, "Guess again." He says, "No, they're doing a concert." And Skipper says, "Who wants a concert now?" And he says, "Well, we want to be rescued." Well, Skipper says, "Who wants to be rescued? Who wants to go to a concert when we want to be rescued?" And Gilligan says, "Well, maybe I should go tell them that." And he says, "No, maybe you better not tell them."
Should we catch up on chat?
Good idea. Thank you.
All right. And Mikey says, "Cool, no worries." And thumbs up a fire for Mikey from DVB. And PvP says, "Grill on Gilligan's Island. Never realized Grill was that old. Well, I got the gray hairs to prove it." Mikey says, "LOL, PvP." Cam says, "The Columbia Broadcasting Network's been around since radio. Actually, I have great content. I listen to a lot of classic radio shows overnight, the late night horror show." Cool.
Oh, yeah, same here. And they also produced the Three Stooges. So, yeah, without them, we would never have the Stooges.
Yeah. And DVB says, "Windows 11 is safe and effective, LOL."
Ha ha ha, yeah, right.
Yeah. Cam says, "DVB, what is this Windows you're talking about?" Rick says, "I don't know why, but I always thought the SS Minnow left Los Angeles Harbor and not something like
Waikiki.
so.
Yeah, yeah, it's all right. They're in Hawaii, in the Hawaiian Islands when they set out on this tour.
Okay, PVB says they keep pushing in Windows 11. I always decline. As I've heard, 11 is not as good as 10.
No, it's crap, and I don't mind declining, but what I don't like is it's designed to where if you decline, it will forcefully shut down all your programs, reboot the computer, and then come up and say, "Do you want Windows?" And you have to decline it again. And that's what I don't like. Is I had Windows open, I had a document, a Microsoft Word document I was working on. So all that, it just takes everything and shuts it down. And when you turn your computer back on, you got to open everything back up again. So, and they do that intentionally, by the way, because they know you're going to. Oh, it does it, yes.
Huh.
But they do that intentionally because they know you'll get eventually tired of it, and they want to do that to force you into upgrading to Windows 11, which I won't do.
Yeah. And welcome, Jim's Landscaping there. He says, "Hello, hello."
Hello, Jim. Good to see you.
And DBB says, "I just looked up the Wellingtons. Didn't know that they wrote the song. I'll have to listen to more of their music."
Well, let me clarify. The Wellingtons didn't write it. The song was written by Sherwood Schwartz and a friend of his. The Wellingtons just sang it, performed the music, and sang it.
Okay. DBB says, "LOL, Cam." Cam says, "Hi, Jim." Mikey says, "The Wellingtons were mostly a house band and not that well known back in the 60s.
No, they weren't at all. This is what made them famous, actually.
PvP says, "Quite a coincidence. We just watched Mosquito till last night's horror stream."
Exactly.
Yeah. And Mikey says, "Yes, PvP. Isn't it ironic, LOL?" Cam says, "I've heard that before. I think it was called the TARDIS. Unfortunately, it doesn't exist anymore."
Oh, he's talking about the boat looking bigger on the inside than it does the outside.
Yeah.
The TARDIS may not exist, but the boat does.
Yeah, but the boat, I don't think we ever seen the inside of it, did we?
Nope.
And
and that's why I'll show that video. It does show the inside.
Yeah. PVB says exactly, Mikey. Uh, Jim says hello. There's his puppies at play movie or thing. PvP says cats and kittens hello. Sounds like a 60s, all right. Mikey says hello,
Exactly.
Jim. Cam says I gotta go to bed. Have fun, everyone. I'll be listening. Pop Gorillas and
All
everyone in
right.
the chat.
Have a great night, Cam. Thanks for joining us. It was good to see you.
All right. So then Jim says hail to PvP and Mikey, and Mikey says bad wigs indeed. LOL. And PvP says Skipper just break the radio on Gilligan's head. You can accomplish both tasks at once.
I know, and that radio's been broken 2 or 3 times, but they always seem to fix it.
Yeah. And PvP says, "Oh, those dudes look like discount." Hey, I take offense to that, PvP.
Well, that is what was popular back then, was the Monkees and the Beatles.
Yeah, and Cam says, "I'm not British. I just like the phrase in affection, night all." And DVB says, "I totally remember this episode now. Hello, pops."
Yeah, it's not bad. It's a good episode.
Yeah, then PvP says, "Jim's landscaping. Hello." DVB says, "Laughing, thumbs up, fire." Cam says, "Exactly, is for comical effect." Then
Right.
Jim says, "Hail, Cam." PvP says, "I guess the wigs and costumes are the
Satirical.
comment to the 60s pop rock bands."
Yes.
Cam says, "Hi, Jim. Have a good one." And PvP says, "Lawrence Welk made Labyrinths look interesting."
Liberace. They both had the same audience. Liberace was more flamboyant. That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah. And DVB says, "Well, I got to go, Pops. Thanks for the fun show tonight. Catch y'all next time." You have a good night there,
Right.
DVB.
Yeah, DVB, good to see you. Thanks.
And Cam says, "Groupies!" Mikey says, "Take care, DVB." And Cam says, "Thank to DVB." All right, I have to go too. Later, everyone.
Take care, Cam.
And PvP says, "Always interesting how folks just show up on the island, but our castaways can never catch a ride home." Well, if they'd stop touching them and go playing grab neck at them, maybe they would have gotten rescued. And Mikey
When I
says,
was a kid, right? Every day. I used to also watch this when I came home from school, and I always got disappointed that they never got rescued. But then, you get older and you realize, well, if they get rescued, it'd be the end of the show. It was the same with Lost in Space. If they would have been found, it'd be the end of the show.
yeah. And Mikey says, "Take care, Cam." Mikey says, "100 agree, Pop." PvP says, "A rock band that wants peace and quiet does not compute." Jim says, "Night, Cam." PvP says, "Never had that happen on my PC, Pop. I've only declined once and it goes away. Maybe it depends on the PC brand. Although it does seem to ask about once a month."
Yeah, it is about once a month for me. But it doesn't ask. It's not like I'm online like right now doing things, and then it asks, "Do you want to upgrade to 11?" No, what it does it'll just suddenly shut everything down. And it always happens to be when I step away from the computer, or I'll leave it at night. I'll leave it on at night, and it'll do it during the middle of the night. I'll wake up the next day, and I'll see the startup screen, and I'll be like, "Oh no, not again!"
All right.
God, I hate Windows. Sorry, go ahead.
All right, we're done. We're caught up.
Cool. Okay, so this is where Gilligan tells Skipper that the mosquitoes want to do a concert for them. And Skipper says, "Okay, we'll listen to the concert and then we'll go home." And he's still excited that they're finally going to be rescued. And he says, "Let me help you." And he slams, of course, Skipper's hand or thumb in the suitcase. Now, coincidentally, that's the same suitcase that Marianne had. But anyway, that's a different story. And
well, it looks more like a suitcase the Skipper would have than Marianne would have.
Well, yeah, that's a suitcase. And in an earlier episode, they established that Skipper had a chest, a larger chest. So here we have Mrs. Howell saying, "Oh, I just adore concerts. I do wish the mosquitoes would stop tuning up and start the music," she says. And he says, Mr. Howell says, "They have stopped tuning up. It is the music." "Oh, dear, Thurston. You probably won't see this in the middle of the first act," she says. "Right. Come on, darling." And he said he wishes they wouldn't be seated at all. And here's the part where I was talking about earlier where they're singing. And if you listen, you can recognize the voices from the singers from the opening and the closing credits. And they're singing a song called "Don't Bug Me, Just Let Me Be."
Notice that they played the same song over and over again.
But yeah, they're singing the same chorus over and over.
Yeah.
That reminds me of disco. That's how a lot of disco songs were. Where it would just have a few lines, and they would repeat it over and over and over and over. But that's why disco didn't last very long. And as they're performing, the audience and Mr. Howell for some reason looks really overjoyous. But the only people really having a good time is Gilligan, Marianne, and Ginger. And Skipper's just confused, and so is Mrs. Howell. Mr. Howell, you can tell, is not really paying much attention.
Yeah, well, he has earplugs in.
Oh yeah, but that's yeah, they don't. That's the joke that they show after.
Even though they would not drown out the music there, I've worn. You gotta wear earplugs every day.
Oh, I
All
know.
right.
When I was in the Air Force, earplugs. I worked on a flight line with airplanes, and earplugs they wouldn't do anything. We actually had look like headphones that cover your ears that were like really thick, supposed to be soundproof, and you can still hear through them. I've never found anything that is truly soundproof. And Gilligan and Ginger and Marianne go wild. And Mrs. Howell is just looking at him through her little specs. Now he's introducing the next song. It's just going to be too much. Thanks. Oh, I guess it's over. That's right. It's over. Thanks. Good night. They walk off. Don't they realize we'll miss the opera season? Says Mrs. Howell. Oh, because they said we'll be here another month. And then that's when Mrs. Howell says, "Don't they realize we'll miss the opera season?" And that was where Ginger asked Mr. Howell, "What are you smiling at, Mr. Howell?" And Mrs. Howell says that he's wearing earplugs. Maybe there's more to this tuneless discord. Maybe he developed an ear for rock and roll. "Thurston, take them out," she says. So she had to yell out until he could hear her. "The concert's over, dear," and now he removes the earplugs.
No, she removed it for him.
That's right. "Oh, the concert's wonderful, marvelous. Here's something you'll get a thrill out of. We're going to be here for another month." He's like, "Oh, no," because he didn't hear that.
Now they're all upset that they said they're going to be there for another month, but it's like, that's really not that. If they're going to be rescuing them, that's not that much to pay for the rescue. Just leave them alone, let them be, let them come there to do what they did, then leave with them.
Yep. I think they're just overexcited because they've been there for going on, what, a year or two at this point? Year and a half. Trouble follows, and now the music's still going on and on. And he says, "Skipper, are you sleeping?" And he says, "I'm still listening to the music." "Yeah, well, so am I. Isn't it wild? They're going to be here a whole month." Gilligan, "I hope I never get that." And he says, I can't remember the exact joke. But he says, "We're lucky to have the concerts. Imagine how rich we'd have to be if we had to pay for all these concerts." And then he says, "Gilligan, I hope I never get that rich."
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Okay. And Gilligan says, "That would be a great, very great plan. If you wanted to stay here on the island." "Certainly, little buddy. I'll walk around on tippy toes." So he says, Gilligan mentions that the Wellingtons are there to relax. The mosquitoes are there to relax and they want peace and quiet. And then Skipper says, certainly, little buddy, I'll walk around on tippy toes. He says, that's why they came to the island, to find peace and quiet. Never mind, Gilligan. And then as we see, Skipper gets an idea. That's it. Gilligan, you've done it again, little buddy. So now Skipper's all excited. I did it again. And of course, Gilligan doesn't know what did I do. So now we cut to the hut that has the Wellingtons in it, and they're all asleep. And Marianne and Ginger are looking through the window. And then they start screaming, the mosquitoes, and they wake everybody up. Oh, it's so groovy. So they're acting like roadies. And they grab the guitar, and they accidentally break the guitar in half. And they're waking everybody up. And here we see the mosquitoes waking up. And Marianne's, it rips off this guy's shirt. And they're dancing around. And the guys are like, wait a minute, hold on. You've had your fun, Doc. Give us a hand. And now they're talking to Mr. Bongo. Now these electrodes will test your brain waves. The professor comes in, and he's got the radio and a set of headphones. And he's saying he wants to experiment on them. And he says, now these electrodes will test your brain waves when you play. And of course, the guy says, oh, no, you're not going to make any Frankenstein out of me. And Professor says, it won't hurt. It'll just take a moment. And of course, they're still fighting them back. And then Marianne says, oh, the strong silent type. So here they are still basically harassing the mosquitoes. Gilligan comes in with some coconuts and says, oh boy, what a party. And now they're all talking, everybody's arguing, and it's loud. This is ridiculous. And a bunch of confusion. And apparently the mosquitoes are very upset at what's going on, which is what that was their intention. And the lead singer of the Mosquitoes says, wait a minute. As your new and then Mr. Howell comes in and says, as your new manager, I have something to say. And they say, new manager, and he says, yes, I have plans for you, really, really, really big. Concerts, one night stands, movies, television. And the lead singer, even though it looks like he's wearing girls' pajamas, says, that does it. We're leaving tomorrow. And then they storm out of the hut. Come on, fellas, let's get out of here. And now the castaways are all happy and rejoicing because that's exactly what they were hoping for. We're leaving tomorrow, and they start celebrating and dancing around. We're leaving tomorrow. Even the professor's excited. And we cut to the next day. We have Gilligan walking through the trees. Hey, bingo, bango, we're ready to leave. And now they realize that the hut is empty. Gilligan, they've gone without us. Well, of course they couldn't. Well, yes, they did. Hey, have you seen the autograph that Bango gave me? So Gilligan has a coconut that has an autograph. Yes, we've seen it, Gilligan. I must admit that I underestimated the reaction that would set in, says the professor. Oh, Professor, we should have kept an eye on them. They're high-strung, nervous type. Never mind that, Gilligan. And then they hear music again. And Skipper says, Gilligan, will you turn that radio off? And Professor says, it's not around here, Skipper. Well, how come I hear music? We've still got a chance of being rescued, so they realize they can hear the band performing, so the band is still there. And they all get up excitedly and all start bumping into each other. I'll go check. No, Gilligan. And there's the band performing. Boy, are we glad to see you. Hear the word, Bingo, the word. And he's telling them, now look, fellas, we'd like to remain the friendly type, but we need rest. We don't need fans. The word, Bingo, the word. All right, man, now hear this. We're not splitting from this island for 2 months. He says, we're wound up tighter than Presley's pants, as a reference to Elvis Presley. All right. But fellas, you're going to take us with you, aren't you? Yeah, when we give the word, he says. That sounds fair, says the skipper. Don't go away. And Mrs. Howe is still chasing after Irving with the scissors. I'll fashion your hair with these nail scissors. Oh, God, if those are neat fingernail scissors, I'd definitely be worried. And he
All right,
says,
sorry,
please
I'm
take
back.
Delilah with you. That's okay. So now we have later on that evening, we have Skipper and Gilligan playing cards. And Gilligan says, you got any queens? And he says, I can't stand any longer, Gilligan. And I guess they're playing fish. And he says, yes, it's too much, isn't it? To Pago, 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 yeah, 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 with you. So Gilligan's singing one of their songs. And Skipper says, 2 months. In 2 months, Gilligan, I'm going from a deserted island to a padded cell. And they're going to have to, and as they say that, here comes Mr. Howe. And they say, Mr. Howe, were you asleep? And he says, no, I was only half asleep.
You lost one of his earplugs.
Yes. No, we haven't. He asked them about the earplugs. Have you seen it? And they say, no, we haven't seen it. And Skipper can't handle it anymore. He's about ready to go crazy. So he gets up and they say, what's the matter, Skipper? And he says, supposedly we do stay on our side of the island. How do we know they're not going to change their minds? They disappeared once before. They'd probably go off without us again. Exactly. That's a good point. Good grief, you're right, says Mr. Howe. They wouldn't do that. But we're not dealing with regular people, says the skipper. They have a world of their own. Show people just like show people. By George Gilligan, says Mr. Howe. Oh boy, I did it again. I sure wish I knew what I keep doing. Because he says he told Gilligan that was a great idea. So here they are storing ideas again. I'm sure it will. So they're talking about creating a band of their own as an opening act for the Wellingtons. And he says that'll make them look good. And Skipper says we'll rehearse with them and everything. And I'll be right back. If there's any chat, Gorilla, please read it.
Yeah, I'll catch up on that.
I got to grab. I'm in a lot of pain. I need to grab my pain pills. I'll be right back.
Yeah. PvP says, I meant the Monkeys band, Gorilla, not any of your relatives. And Mikey says, Gorillas random orangutans. LOL. Mikey says, just an idea for a band name. And Jim says, LOL with PvP. And PvP says, that's weird, Pop. It doesn't seem to shut mine down. PvP says, don't bug me. And Mikey says, the Mosquitoes would never sell out an arena or auditorium or concert hall. Laughing my ass off this. I'm not going to try to guess that because my mind's going in the wrong direction.
I think he means PvP.
Oh, okay. Then we get a mosquito. And PvP says, remember disco? We were a bit underage, but it was easy to sneak into discos and get cheap beer. My pals and we were still, and I were still long-haired jean pocket guys. We get a corner table by the dance floor. Here is Jim's YouTube channel there. And PvP says, and laugh at all the private ultra wanna be dance there. And Mikey says, PvP, do a little dance, make a little love, get down tonight, LOL. Casey and the Sunshine Band. And PvP says, we were all into classic 60s and 70s bands, and then punk when it came around in 76.
Yeah, like the Sex
Mikey,
Pistols and all that.
yeah, Mikey says, no, not that song. Oh my, PvP, so sorry, dude. And PvP says, actually, in the past 20 years, I have come to appreciate some disco songs. Here is my channel again. There, PvP says, thanks. That's okay, Mikey. KC was never a band I cared for. I heard that song
No.
hundreds of times.
Yeah, and Casey and the Sunshine Band is a perfect example of what I was talking about earlier, where they say a few words or a sentence or two, and then they repeat it over and over and over and over. Like they had a song, "That's the way I like it," and that's all they said. That's the way, I like it. That's the way, I like it. Over and over and over and over and over. Yeah, I
Or
was
My
definitely
Baby
not a
Does
fan.
the Hanky Panky.
I don't know if
They
that's
say that one
disco.
56. Well, it's not disco, but they say my for 4 minutes straight, 56 times. They say my baby does the hanky panky. My
Uh,
baby does the hanky
so
panky.
what was that like? 1960s?
Yeah, yeah, it's early rock.
Okay, are we caught up on the chat?
Just a couple more.
All
PvP
right.
says that's okay. Mikey Casey was a never. Oh wait, I read that one. Looks like the pajamas Ebenezer Scrooge wore. LOL. And
True,
yeah, PvP says, LOL, those band costumes are real cliche 60s garb.
definitely.
Absolutely not some of the wild costumes that I was used to from the Beatles, Stones, or the Who. All right,
Yeah, I
that's
think they
my.
were kind of. I think they were kind of like a parody. That's why they had the exaggerated wigs and what they used to call loud clothing. Okay, back to the video. So they're talking about setting up a band of their own. They're going to rehearse and everything. And he says now that they're, and he says it will make them look better. So then they're bound to take us with them. Well, you three, you're going to sing together, says Marianne. Says Ginger. And they say, what about the professor? You mean we'll have our own singing group? Yes. And then of course Raleigh and Mr. Howe says this is almost too much. I'll be forever excluded from the Harvard Club.
Huh.
And we have Ginger dancing to music. And there's Gilligan in this terrible, horrible looking outfit. Oh, the pants look great. How's it feel?
Yeah.
He says, like alligator skin on an alligator.
Yeah. If I wore that, I'd have to kick my own ass.
I know, but that is the kind of stuff that. What's interesting is those skinny pants. They actually made a resurgence, and they became popular again in the like 2000s through 2015.
Yeah.
And she talks about a dance of Watusi. I can hardly walk around in them. And she's trying to say, "Oh, great, come on, Ginger, you want down again? Hold on, I gotta let my dog down."
Oh, I thought you were talking about Ginger on the show. And how did Gilligan find that outfit? I'm pretty sure he stole it from them. From the mosquitoes. Maybe they gave it to him. I don't know. And Scurvy says, yeah, I see a Tools dress like that today. Yeah, PvP says, Mikey, I never noticed those bands being quite that outrageous. And there are three of my favorite bands. I remember them as more stylish. I will agree the Beatles' psychedelic costumes are crazy. I guess I'd have to see the costumes he was talking about.
Well, you can see them more in some of their movies, like Help and the Yellow Submarine and stuff like that. The Beatles, it took me a while for them to grow on me. When I was young, I wasn't a fan. But when I got older, I tend to like their music better now. Sorry, I'm counting pills.
Like, and Jim says, "Hail Scurvy," and PvP says it in a fun way, and Scurvy says, "Hail Jim." Or,
All right. So now back to the video. And here we are with Gilligan and Ginger dancing. And of course, Gilligan's not much of a dancer. And Mrs. Howell comes in with a wig for Gilligan. Oh, it looks just perfect, she says. You need a haircut. Of course, she's still obsessed with haircuts. So she pulls out those scissors again. But he does need a haircut. His bangs are too long, she says. But there's an interruption. Be careful. Excuse me, Mrs. Howell. And here comes the professor. He comes in, and he's made a drum set for the. I'm trying to remember the name of the band because unfortunately the subtitles have it covered up. Hold on a second. The Gnats. That's right, the Gnats. Okay. So let me open up the subtitles again. There we go. So the professor hands him the drums and says, "Here are the sticks. Now see if you can play the drums," says Ginger. And of course he starts pounding on it, but he doesn't really know how to play them. He drops the stick, and he goes to pick it up, and his pants rip in the back.
yeah, that's become a classic trope.
It is. It usually happens to the skipper.
Well, oh yeah, it's a good mini shows though.
Yes.
That's
And
what
what's that?
it's been used in. This trope was used a lot, like almost overdone.
Yep. And Gilligan is counting and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. And there's the horrible looking band as they start performing. Of course, Mr. Howell looks ridiculous, and so does the skipper. It's hard to believe they get. Gilligan looks okay. Professor, it's hard to believe they convinced the professor to do this, but I guess he'll do whatever it takes to get rescued. Take this pill. And the mosquitoes hear this and come running in. And apparently it sounds, well, obviously it sounds terrible. And here's where the mosquitoes are listening, but as you can see by them wincing, the wince and the looks on their faces, they don't seem to enjoy the music very much. Is the subtitles even working? I know I had them on. Let's see if we get our subtitles.
Oh, I think you turned them off because
Oh, I did, but then I opened them back up again. Let me see here. All right, I'm going to have to turn them off again. Disable. Add subtitle again. Load them up again. Apologize for the delay, guys. It even says subtitle track added, so it should work. There it is. And as they're singing, the mosquitoes run away because they can't handle the noise. And of course, Skipper's lamenting because he knows they sounded like crap. Oh, Gilligan, the mosquitoes felt we were awful. Oh boy, a little bit of criticism and you fall apart. You can't start from the top, you know. And put you in the ground like a thumbtack, says the skipper. Remember, the show must go on, says Gilligan. Gilligan, will you please be quiet? And Gilligan says, won't you try it just once more? And Skipper says, you just don't seem to understand, do ya? He says, you got it, Skipper. But it goes, yeah. He says, you don't seem to get it, do ya? No. And Gilligan says, no, you got it, Skipper. But it goes, yeah. Referring to that song. And Gilligan continues singing the song as he leaves. And the skipper looks ridiculous. And the music continues. Gilligan singing and dancing. And he goes to talk to Ginger. And he says to Ginger, tell me honestly, how were we? And she says Gilligan that act couldn't get booked on Devil's Island. You guys have all heard of Devil's Island, right, Gorilla?
They had a certain billionaire on it, didn't it?
Oh, definitely not. It was a penitentiary off the coast of France, kind of like Alcatraz,
Oh wait,
except it wasn't as nice as Alcatraz. And what they did is it was like they would put criminals on it, and a lot of them suffered from malaria, diseases, mosquito bites, starvation. You couldn't even escape the island. Uh, Speaking of mosquitoes, which we watched last night, but apparently the mosquitoes were very huge on that island. And if you tried to escape, the mosquitoes would pretty much suck you to dry before you even made it to the coast. Um, it became very infamous because so many people died and so many people were tortured on it. A lot of them were forced to do hard labor in the nude in bad weather.
yeah.
And eventually, one guy says that he escaped. It's still to be debated, but one guy said that he escaped Devil's Island. He wrote a famous book, which they turned into a movie with Steve McQueen and Dustin Hoffman called Papillon, which tells the story of Devil's Island. Did you have something to say, Gorilla?
No, I remember watching a movie on it, but I can't. It was a long time ago. I can't remember the movie of it. Something about Monte Carlo or something,
Well, Monte Carlo's a location. That doesn't sound like
or
Devil's
the
Island.
count, or the Count of something. The Count of
The Count, the Count of Monte Cristo.
Yes, that's it. The Count of Monte Cristo.
They talk about Devil's Island in that movie.
He was sent to Devil's Island and then he escaped from there.
Gotcha. But that wasn't based on a true story, was it? Was it fictitious?
No, I
Fiction?
don't.
Fiction.
I can look it up.
Because I've heard of it, but I can't remember if I've seen it or not. If I have, it's been a long time.
Yeah, I seen it not like a year ago. So
Okay. Well, she says that act couldn't even get booked on Devil's Island. And she says, I don't know how to put this, but you were terrible. Boy, for somebody who doesn't know
oh,
how to put it.
okay, the story is based on a real life person named Pierre Picard. It's considered historical fiction, but it's based like the main bones of the story were based on a real person. They changed the names, then they changed some details.
Right, they elaborated and a lot of that added a lot to it to pad out the story. It's the same thing that was told with Papillon. People doubted that it was real, and he said, no, he really did escape. And they said, well, you probably added a lot of details to it. So Gilligan
Well,
says, my grandmother, go ahead.
they had to make it more exciting than it actually was.
Well, right, and there wasn't much to the story, so they embellished it, I guess you could say. So Gilligan said, my grandmother always used to say, never criticize anybody unless you can do better yourself. That's it. That's it. You've done it again. So once again, she says, Gilligan has a wonderful idea and he doesn't know what she's talking about. I don't know what I'm doing. And she gives him a hug. And now Mr. Howell, this is where Mr. Howell is impersonating, uh, not Lawrence Welk. I'll come up with the name in a second. It's another guy who used to host a famous show that was on the air. That Elvis was on there and a bunch of big bands. I can't believe my name draws a blank. I'm sure somebody in the chat will remember. So now a trio with a really, really big future. That's how the host used to talk. The girls with a new sound. And here they are, the honeybees. Yay, yay, yay. And you can see Mr. Howell puts on a record. And here they have them singing. And I wondered about this. Is that really them singing? I don't know. It's doubtful. But when Mrs. Howell sings, you can tell it's definitely her voice.
So they probably were all singing.
Possible. If they did, if it really was them singing, the Marianne and Ginger sound pretty good. And of course, the mosquitoes noticing, hear the music, and they come to listen, and they seem to enjoy it better. And this is the name of the song, You Need Us, You Need Me, like a picture needs a star. of course, the old 60s dance. And here's where Marianne gets her time to talk or sing. And this is the part where I was talking about where Mrs. Howell comes out. And of course, she does not sound very good, but you could definitely tell it's her voice. And they seem to enjoy it. Oops. And now they're all excited and they figure, okay, they're saved, they're rescued. The mosquitoes loved the sound of the girl band, the honeybees. So everybody's packing. And wow, thanks to the autograph girls. So Skipper's passing around that coconut, getting autograph from the girls.
Huh?
And he said he tried to get Mrs. Howells. And Skipper interrupts and says, Gilligan, will you finish packing? I can hardly wait till we get back to our car, says Mrs. Howell. Oh, yes, and we left the engine running, says Mr. Howell, which is crazy because, like I said, they've been on the island for at least a year and a half. And remember, when I covered that letter that described how all of them got onto the minnow and how the Howells had all their clothing and how the professor brought his books. Remember, that's what they originally said, is that Mr. Howell was going to drive to the island. Mrs. Howell wanted to take the scenic route on the boat, but she forgot something in the car. And Mr. Howell told the chauffeur to leave the car running, and he was going to take whatever it was. Ah, sorry. So Mrs. Howell left something in the car. Mr. Howell told the driver, wait here, I'm going to go take this to Mrs. Howell on the boat, and I'll be right back. And Mr. Howell got on the boat, and Mrs. Howell was down below. Mr. Howell went in there to give her what she had forgotten. While he was down there with her, the boat left the marina, and that's how Mr. Howell got stuck on the boat. So it makes sense what they're referring to here, where he says he left the car running. And the professor comes in and says, you might as well unpack. What do you mean unpack? He says the mosquitoes left us a message. Apparently, hi gang, me and the boys. When the helicopter came by with provisions, and Mrs. Howell says, and for the honeybees, as for the honeybees, and they wrote, as for the honeybees, you're good gals, but just a little too good, and we've got enough competition. So there wouldn't be any hard feelings. He left a gift. And Gilligan's always had a gift. Oh, I love presents. And Skipper said, well, what is it? Open it up. I'm trying to, Skipper. And it looks like they left an album behind, the Mosquitoes. Yeah, the Mosquitoes at Carnegie Hall. And of course, they're severely disappointed. And so is Gilligan. He says, you're absolutely right, leaving us with an album with no autograph. Skipper says, Gilligan, of course, frustrated again. And they all start hitting Gilligan on the head. Mr. Howell offers his teddy. And we cut back to them singing again, like you figure they haven't given up on it yet. And Ginger whispers to Marianne, if the world is lucky, we'll never get rescued. That's funny. And it shows all the three ladies putting in their earplugs.
Huh?
And we fade out to the end credits. And our closing song, sung by the Wellingtons/Mosquitoes. You're yawning. It sounds like we're wrapping this up just in time.
Yeah.
And as a reminder, everybody, go ahead.
Well, it is midnight, so.
I know. That's why we definitely try to wrap this up early, because it starts late, and I don't want you to be up too late because you have to work tomorrow. But as a reminder, if any of you in the chat who have not noticed before, over on the left where you can see my cursor, There's a dome. You can see a circular building right here. That's the sound stage where they shoot the interiors of all the huts and all that. So the sound stage right here is right next to the exterior location of the lagoon. That way, it made it easy for them to shooting and filming. They just had to go in and outside of the sound stage. There, let me hide my mouse. And the song continues.
Alrighty, let's catch up on chat here.
Sounds good.
Alright, here's Oilers Greg's channel for spoiler-free reviews. PvP says Gilligan should be fighting a bull in that costume. Mikey says, I think Bob Demmer felt this was a cool throwback to his role as Maynard
Maynard G. Right, the beatnik, yes. It was a TV show, or it was a black and white TV show that was on before Gilligan's Island, and that's Sherwood Schwartz spotted him on that show, and that's how he got the job as Gilligan.
Yeah, and Mikey says, loves, not lives. PvP says, love the way that the Beatles progressed, like a boy band almost in the early stuff, then to serious rocks in the mid-'60s, and total creative adventures stuff in the late 60s.
All until John Lennon quit.
Yeah, Beatles invented so much studio techniques with producer John Martin, too.
George
Martin.
That's cool.
And a song like Helter Skelter from 1968 is so over the top. It's like the proto-metal punk years before these genres existed. Saw Alcatraz from the shore where it was in San Francisco in the 80s. Cool.
Oh, I actually went on into Alcatraz. I took the tour. It was interesting.
Yeah. Never did a boat tour, though. Mikey says Ed Sullivan Show.
That's it. That was the name I was trying to remember that Mr. Howell was trying to do an impersonation of Ed Sullivan. Thank you, Mikey.
Yeah, and welcome, Cody. Welcome, Cody.
Hello,
guy.
Cody. Good to see you. We're just getting ready to wrap this up, Cody. I'm sorry you came towards the end.
Yeah, and PvP says I remember Escape from Alcatraz film with Clint Eastwood, entertaining film.
Yes, it was a good movie.
Based on a true story can mean based on a few facts and heavily embellished.
Yes.
Yeah? Ed Sullivan, a really big shoe. I miss great variety shows like Sullivan. And Jim's clapping. There, thank you, Jim. Mikey says Les Brown Jr. was the son of a renowned Les Brown in his renowned band era. Poor Gorilla so late. Yeah? But I chose to do this, so I'm sticking to it.
And we don't do it very often.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is our first time we've done it in a month.
Yeah. So, which one did you like better, Pop?
I have to say I like the... That's a good question. I thought that reminds me. I didn't get a chance to put the poll in the chat. And I forgot. And I apologize. So for those of you in the chat... and if you're in the chat, please mention and write in the chat which episode you enjoyed the most. The first one was Chain of Command. The second one was Don't Bug the Mosquitoes. Let us know which one you liked the most.
Yeah.
I would say I liked Chain of Command the best. The first one.
I like Chain of the Command the best better because it was like almost a serious episode with comedic elements into it. Like, what would happen if something did happen to the skipper? Who would take charge and stuff? And what would happen if they were actually attacked? You know, that is a good story. You know, with some comedic effects versus the mosquitoes. I could tell exactly what I was able to predict the mosquitoes thing there. So right away, to show up to the island, they're going to be there for a while. They didn't want to wait, so they're going to piss them off and then get left behind. Which they will just waited the damn month they would have been rescued, you know. I mean, it was a very funny episode, but very predictable.
Yes.
And Mikey says the mosquitoes episode was the best by far, A-.
And I think the reason why I choose the first one over the second one is it's kind of like Gorilla said. It was a little more serious, and it's a topic that if people were stranded on an island that's something they would actually cover. That if the person in charge of something that would happen to them would take over, or who would take over. So that's a logical progression of what would happen if people were stranded on an island. The second episode, I liked it, and I liked the fact that we get to see the Wellingtons. Because when I was a kid, I didn't realize that was the same people who sung the opening title. But knowing that they did put them on the show, that kind of helps, and I like that and I appreciate it. But I think what makes the first episode better than the second episode, and this is the same reason with Star Trek TOS, well, I don't like The Way of Eden, is because the episode is too dated. So the second episode, you could tell. Okay, the second episode, let me explain this. Without seeing the second episode, most of the episodes on Gilligan's Island are timeless. You could never, it's hard to tell that they were done in the 60s with a few exceptions. They didn't have episodes that highly dated the series or the episode. So whenever a series does date the series or the episode, I don't think it really stands out. I'm sure in the 60s they thought it was fantastic, but it being this the year 2023, it's not really fun to watch, especially for people who've never been around the 60s. And I and I know this I'm going to sound horrible for saying this, but I wish they would have showed truncated versions of them singing, abbreviated of the songs. Every time they sang, it was almost a complete song. It felt like the plot was dragging.
Well, no, they didn't even sing a complete song, and they were just repeating the same damn thing over and over again. She's a loser. He's a loser.
Right.
He, just like,
Well, because when they wrote it, they probably only spent a day or two writing the script, so they're not going to go through a lot of effort writing the songs.
oh wait, man, you're giving more credit than I did because the song, I swear to God, they spent 30 seconds on it, wrote lines down, and they said, "Oh, that's good enough. Just have them repeat it over and over again for 2 minutes."
Probably so.
Yeah, I think the songs are meant as filler. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I didn't like the episode. I enjoyed it, but it was predictable and it did drag at times.
Yeah, and I think what it is too, that if those were like okay, which obviously they're not going to do, but if those were famous songs that we all know from the '60s, sure, it would have been much more enjoyable. We'd probably even sing along with it. But when they play songs that never went anywhere, that were never popular, and they were only written for this specific episode, you're not familiar with them, I think that's what makes it kind of boring. But like I said, that's just my opinion. But that's
Just a couple of them here. Uh, PvP says, "Well, it's nice to see you guys back tonight."
thank you, PvP.
Yeah, and he says, "I thought Chain was better. I found the mosquitoes episode a bit silly, really."
Oh yeah, sometimes Gilligan sounds like a cartoon.
Yeah, it was cool though for the music of the time. PvP says Mikey. Well, I
Yep,
still think,
definitely
yeah.
'60s influence.
And PvP says, "Well, I still think '60s and '70s music was the most creative." Mikey so agreed.
Yeah, I would say so as well.
And here's PvP's channel for all your rock needs. Alrighty, that's all our
Okay.
chats.
All right. I wanted to thank everybody in the chat for being here. I really appreciate it, you guys. Like I said, it was sorely missed. I missed all of you because it's been at least a month, if not longer, that we've done a Gilligan's Island chat. It seemed like I was spending so much time in the hospital, in and out, and in between moving. But now that I'm at the new place, we'll be back every week, I promise. I'm hoping to have a rumblings from the lab stream here in the next few days. We kind of touched on it last night that it's going to cover like UFOs and paranormal stuff and things like that. If I can get everything, all my ducks in a row and all my tabs ready to go by this weekend, hopefully. And Gorilla, tell us about your channel.
Oh, we like tonight. We just literally started Justified Watch Party there. So next week will be episodes 2 and 3, or 3 and 4 for season 1, and then on Friday I'm hoping they have Well, I think I might have to go fix my phone, but the way it sounds is the entire area is down, so I'll just have to wait for that to see
Well, that
if I can.
sucks.
So
What
I've
carrier is that?
Verizon.
Oh, I understand. I have Verizon and it does the same thing.
Well, that sounds like the entire Northwest Iowa and Southwest Minnesota is down.
Yeah, when I was living in the Bay Area, the whole area would go down, and it would last for sometimes half a day or longer.
Yeah. Well, they said they're working on the problem there, but the one lady was telling me couldn't tell me that they're down. She's doing the down detector, but apparently that told her nothing. So she's trying to tell me I might have to go get a new damn SIM card. I was like, oh,
Yes.
that's when I flipped out because I'm not driving 70 miles for a SIM card I just replaced 2 months ago.
Hold on. Wait. Language.
Oh, sorry.
No, I agree. Like for example, one time it was totally dead. It said no signal. This is when I was in the Bay Area, and they did the same thing. They blamed it on me. Maybe it's your phone. Maybe you need to restart it. Maybe you have spyware. Blah, blah, and on and on and on and on. And I got upset too, and I told her off because I'm not stupid and I don't like people patronizing me. So I thought, okay, the Verizon store is like just a few blocks away. I'm going to go drive there and ask them. I get there and there's a whole line of people outside, and they're all saying they're having the same problems. So yeah, that's what companies do, and it's downright crappy what they do when they lie to people like that, manipulate them. But it was the same thing. Everybody's standing outside the door, and the whole store's packed. Everyone's talking to each other, looking at each other, saying, "Yeah, same thing happened to me. I called and they said it was my phone." And we get here and we see all these people with the same issues, and they're all yelling at the store employees. And the store employees are finally saying, "Yeah, we're sorry. The Verizon network is down. They're working on it. We'll get it back up as soon as possible." And of course, we're all saying, "But why didn't you just tell us that over the phone? Why can't you be honest?" But they're never going to be honest. So Lemon Pie says, "Thank you, Pop Gorilla. It is my pleasure, Lemon, and I'm so glad to see you back."
Yeah.
And PPP says, "Lady Eden is one of Trek's worst." Yay, brother! It is my absolute number one least favorite out of all the episodes of TOS. Very dated, and always thought the writer didn't understand hippie culture. That's exactly right. It was like somebody who didn't understand hippie culture.
Yeah. Full disclosure, somewhere on my channel, I have defended the episode Way to Eden.
So you liked it?
Well, I had to defend it.
So you
So,
defended it even if you don't like it?
right. I had to. Hey, I had to even defend. Move along home. If I could defend that piece of crap
What is that?
episode,
What is that?
DS9 6 episode
Oh,
or eighth episode. No, 6 episodes season 1 of DS9.
interesting.
The command staff gets sucked into a game there, and Cork has to play the game to get him out, and it's so stupid. And it has the worst damn rhyme. Elmarine, count to 3. Elmarine, then 4 more. Elmarine, count to 3. 3 then.
I'm so
Oh,
glad I didn't watch that show.
oh God, it's a lot worse than Way to Eden. Then on Saturday it's Babylon 5. Then Sunday we are watching Schindler's List.
Okay, very cool. So remember that, everybody. Tune into Gorilla's Random Thoughts channel. Um, I'm going to finish what PvP said. Way of Way to Eden. It's Way of Eden, but is one of Star Trek's worst. Very dated, and always thought the writer didn't understand hippie culture at all, and actually hated hippies. So wrote the characters as clowns. Lemon Pie says, "Glad to see everyone here." Yes, it is. Mikey says, "Thank you, Lemon, for helping out again, little buddy." And Jim says, "Night, everyone." Good night, Jim. Thank you for stopping by. And Mikey says, "Night, Jim." And PvP says, "I thought the hippies were a bad cliche when I watched in '69." They always were, yeah, they always were. And even as a kid, I watched, progressively, I watched Star Trek from a kid growing up through the '60s, the '70s, '80s, and the as every year passed, the more I disliked those episodes that were heavily dated. So I think they were bad ideas. PvP says, "Was fun as always, Papa Gorilla, and cool chat, folks." Well, thank you. Yeah, it was fun. PvP says, "You're all awesome." Absolutely. Lemon Pie says, so does Verizon suck? They do, but who doesn't? Mikey says Verizon does stink. And PvP says, hate it when internet goes down. I know, right? Of course, there was a day where we could have lived forever without internet, but now it's like we're gonna die without it and we can't handle it. But when I go camping and I'm isolated, I don't miss it at all. It's only if I have something planned, that there's something I'm gonna do, and it goes down. That's when it's truly frustrating. And PvP says companies that do that needs customers to quiet. You know, you're right, but they know these in this day and age, people are lemmings or sheep. You could practically piss in their face and they'll still come back for more. Nobody complains. That's why you can go to Walmart and there's 12 registers and they only got one or two open and they've got two lines with 100 people in each line. People are suckers and they do whatever they're told. They're cowards and they won't speak up. Sad to say, but it's true. PvP says trouble is seems most companies suck. Yes, they do. It's all about profit and saving on labor. And PvP says, LOL Gorilla, that was bad. Okay, we don't need stream art, but you check out Captain Infinity's channel.
Wait, what
All
was
right.
bad?
Oh, I think we're talking about.
Verizon being bad?
I think so. But I. Excuse me. Darn this cough. I know it's past midnight for Gorilla. So I'm going to wrap this up. And I want to say once again, thank you everybody in the chat for being here. I appreciate you guys spending time with us. And I'll be back with the rumblings from the lab. This weekend, we'll have another episode of Lost in Space, Return to Earth on Monday. And I'm going to be putting a poll out in the chat, probably tonight or tomorrow, on what classic horror / sci-fi movie we can cover on Tuesday. And then we'll be back on Wednesday with our next 2 episodes of Gilligan's Island. And I really appreciate you all being here. And most of all, Gorilla, thank you for being here and helping me out with the chat.
Yeah, not a problem.
I know it's late, so have a good night's sleep, Gorilla, and drive safe tomorrow, okay?
Yeah, I will.
Okay, take care, everybody. Have a great night, and peace.